The current Chu Feng had curled lightning all over his body. The lightning snakes roared, and he did not even seem like a person anymore. He was just like a battle god created by lightning. The might Chu Feng displayed stupefied everyone. In order for a martial skill to condense spiritual energy into substance, it had to be a rank 5 martial skill. To know that within the Azure province, the strongest were only rank 6 martial skills. Rank 5 martial skills were something that many hoped for yet could not get. However, such an outstanding martial skill was grasped by a young man like Chu Feng. Naturally, many people would admire and respect him. However, Ding Chu, who was completely confident in his golden armor steel body, was not afraid at all. He raised his arm and rushed towards Chu Feng. In the instant of collision between the lightning snake and the golden light, the two people who had martial skills that protected their bodies started a vicious physical body confrontation. However, just as they attacked, the advantaged and disadvantaged was quickly determined. Chu Feng's lightning snakes were extremely overbearing, and they had absolute attack power. Ding Chu's martial skill was coincidentally a defense martial skill, so he was quickly pressured by Chu Feng. Asterisk bang bang bang, asterisk their fists and feet swung and kept on colliding. Every time they connected together, a deafening boom would be made. Every time they exchanged blows, strong ripples would surge. The most important thing was that when every ripple emitted out, Ding Chu would back off one step and Chu Feng would press forward. Heavens, what kind of person is Chu Feng? He can use the cultivation of the 8th level of the spirit realm to pressure Ding Chu, who's at the 2nd level of the origin realm. People endlessly exclaimed, and many people's blood boiled from watching, because the scene in front of them told them a terrifying truth. Chu Feng, who relied on the martial skill, which was condensed by spirit energy, from the body was pressuring Ding Chu, who had origin power. So strong, I never would have thought that Chu Feng was this strong. It seems that maybe he really can help my golden purple city and be the champion. Chen Hui and many guards of the golden purple city were happy and excited. Originally, they had great hopes on Chen Wangxi, but they never would have guessed that Chu Feng amazed everyone with one cry. It made the originally depressed them see the light again. Weren't you going to use this golden armor steel body to break me? Why are you being beaten down by me like this? Lightning coiled around Chu Feng's body, and they would move with a thought. He did not even need to personally attack, and he only need to press himself forward. With that, he could make Ding Chu continuously retreat, and even if he had a strengthened body, he could not oppose Chu Feng's lightning whip. Beat me down. You are not worthy. Ding Chu started to be slightly anxious because of Chu Feng, so he took out 2 big jet-black blades from his cosmos sack. The blades were jet-black, and one could not tell what they were made out of. The edge was not sharp, yet it gave people a feeling of it being abnormally hard. It was certainly not a normal weapon. Asterisk whoosh whoosh asterisk the double blades in Ding Chu's hands were waved, and they formed 2 rays of black. It was extremely bizarre, and it was as if it could cut through spiritual energy and chop through origin power. It did actually cut off Chu Feng's lightning whip as it dissipated into the air. After cutting off the attacking whip, Ding Chu turned defense into offense and started to attack Chu Feng. Chu Feng tightly frowned, as he did not expect that there would be such a strange weapon in the world that could chop through martial skills. However, being surprised was being surprised. Chu Feng did not retreat, and with a switch in thoughts, the spiritual energy in his body exploded out. Asterisk roar asterisk violent lightning was shot out from his body, and it formed into several long, huge lightning dragons. The lightning dragons roared and the sound jolted everywhere. The strong might even made the stage intensely tremble. HMPH. At the end, it is only a rank 4 martial skill. No matter how much stronger it is, I can still cut through it. Ding Chu coldly snorted, and his attack did not diminish at all. Several rays of black slashed through the air, and the huge lightning dragons were all cut off by him. As they disappeared, he sliced towards Chu Feng's body. Damn it. This guy's blade really can break my 3 thunder styles. Chu Feng was quite stunned, and he finally experienced the power of that blade. Those are black and gold blades. They're created by black and gold, and they can cut down all martial skills under rank 5. Someone yelled that out as they recognized where the black-colored blade came from. They're black and gold blades. Those are a type of treasure, and they cost quite a bit. Where did this Ding Chu come from to be able to have blades like those? There are even two. After knowing that the weapon in Ding Chu's hands were black and gold blades, people were ceaselessly shocked because black and gold blades had quite considerable costs. It's him. I know who he is. At that instant, Chen Wangxi, who stood behind Chen Hui, slightly opened her small mouth, and within her shiny eyes was a hint of astonishment. Wangxi, what? What about that Ding Chu? Chen Hui also felt that something was wrong, so he quickly asked, "Those two black and gold blades? I should not be mistaken, it's him." In the core disciple exam of my Lingyun school, a disciple killed a monstrous beast that had the strength of the 3rd level of the origin realm, and became the #1 person in that year's core disciple exam. However, no one saw that person's appearance clearly, so no one knew who that person was, and from that, it became a mystery. But someone did see that it was a young man that held two black and gold blades. Chen Wangxi said gravely, "What? That Ding Chu is that strong?" Not only Chen Hui, the other gold and purple city guards widened their mouths, and shock was filled on their faces. Monstrous beasts were very strong existences. A monstrous beast that was at the 3rd level of the origin realm was really quite something. To be able to kill that monstrous beast meant that Ding Chu was a terrifying person, and he was undoubtedly a genius. Asterisk whoosh 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 asterisk on the fighting stage. Rays of black flickered, and Ding Chu's attack was abnormally fierce. At that instant, Chu Feng could only rely on the definite speed of the Imperial Sky technique to flee randomly on the stage, and to attack with the 3 thunder styles at Ding Chu's blind spots. But Ding Chu really could not be underestimated. His reactions were extremely quick, and Chu Feng's attack were in vain against him. Every time when his attacks were going to land, they would always be cut apart by his black and gold blade. It's useless. This black and gold blade can cut apart all martial skills under rank 5. Although your lightning methods are no weaker than rank 5 martial skills in terms of power, at the end, it is still a rank 4 martial skill, and it will not threaten me in any way. Ding Chu leaped forward and threw himself at Chu Feng. His speed was even quicker than last time. Rank 5 martial skills, thank you for reminding me. At that instant, Chu Feng did not dodge anymore. Instead, on the corner of his mouth was a faint smile as he stood where he was, waiting for Ding Chu to come forth. Is Chu Feng an idiot? Why isn't he dodging? When people saw that scene, they were greatly stunned because the power of the black and gold blade was not to be looked down upon. It could even cut through martial skills. If it landed on Chu Feng's body, the result was unimaginable. Asterisk whoosh asterisk, however, at that point of time, Chu Feng suddenly clenched both of his fists, and a golden-colored pike condensed into his hands. He stepped forward, waved his arms, and the golden-colored pike within his hands became a golden dragon as it swept towards Ding Chu. With a huge bang, the black and gold blade in Ding Chu's hand flew away into the air. Looking back at Ding Chu, he backed away for a few steps, and on the left-hand palm, which was holding the black and gold blade, was blood. One black and gold blade left Ding Chu's hand. It flew off the fighting stage and stabbed into the ground. Blood kept on dripping from Ding Chu's left hand, and he was clearly not lightly injured. Looking back at Chu Feng, both of his hands were tightly holding onto a golden-colored pike. The golden pike was sparkling, and although it was condensed by golden light, it was abnormally powerful, and it emitted repressing strength. You said as long as it isn't a rank 5 martial skill, you can cut it off. So, I might as well let you see what a rank 5 martial skill is. Chu Feng pointed the golden pike at Ding Chu. Heavens, that power is undoubtedly a rank 5 martial skill. It's really a rank 5 martial skill. That Chu Feng can actually control a rank 5 martial skill. At that instant, cries of surprise rang everywhere. It wasn't that no one on scene couldn't use a rank 5 martial skill. It was just unheard of to be able to use a rank 5 skill at Chu Feng's age. After all, there were extremely high body and comprehension requirements for rank 5 martial skills. If one's body did not reach the standard, even if they understood the mysteriousness of the skills, they could not use it. If their comprehension power was not enough, even if their body reached the standard, they could not cultivate it. Most people had cultivated for many years, and after reaching a certain understanding on the road of martial cultivation, and also after reaching a certain level in cultivation, they could successfully cultivate rank 5 martial skills. With Chu Feng's age and cultivation, it did not make sense how he was able to use rank 5 martial skills. Is this person really a genius that is hard to see even in 100 years? At that moment, that thought popped into many people's minds because Chu Feng's performance really shocked people too much. Time after time, he smashed the views of other people towards him. At first, they thought that he was only there to fill in the space as an inferior, and they even mocked how the gold and purple city found a person like him. However, looking back at it, how did he even seem like a weak person? He was simply a genius that one could not even meet in 100 years. Especially the participants from the gold and purple city. In that instant, their emotions were the most complex. They kept on looking down on Chu Feng before, and felt that he was losing their gold and purple city's face. However, looking at it now, it was impossible for them to even be compared to him because Chu Feng really was way more outstanding than them. It made them feel quite ashamed. The Azure Dragon School will rise abruptly since a disciple like him appeared. In the future, they will certainly have great accomplishments, and they will not be a second-rate school anymore. Some people even predicted that Chu Feng could bring the Azure Dragon School up to a new position because his performance was too eye-catching right now. Although he had the status of being a disciple of a second-rate school, he had the strength to pressure a disciple from a first-rate school. He was even so young. No matter if it was cultivation time or battle experience, he was far from others. Those things just so happened to emphasize Chu Feng's overwhelming areas. He's too strong. This person is so strong. No wonder Lady Su Ro would say those words. Chen Hui and the others were rather astonished, and they saw the hope for victory once again. However, only Chen Wangxi tightly frowned and said, "It won't be this easy. Do not ever underestimate that Ding Chu. He is unquestionably not an ordinary person, since he was able to get first place in the Lingyun School's core disciple exam. Besides, it was 1 year ago that he killed the monstrous beast. Within the year, it would be impossible for him to have no improvement. After all, rank 5 martial skills don't only belong to the Azure Dragon School. My Lingyun School has plenty of those as well." "Wangxi, your meaning is?" After hearing Chen Wangxi's words, Chen Hui and the others felt a wave of uneasiness because they suddenly remembered that the Lingyun School was the one school in the Azure Province. It was the gathering ground for the most excellent geniuses within the Azure Province. Furthermore, as Ding Chu was able to get first place in the core disciple exam, he was a genius within geniuses. His strength was most likely not only up to there. You think only you know rank 5 skills. I've played around with you enough for today. I've gotten tired of it, and I've decided that I will finish you off. I will open your eyes and experience what real rank 5 martial skills are. Suddenly, Ding Chu's aura started to change. A wave of indescribable strong power was exploding out from within his body. His cultivation was rapidly rising. Even his injured left hand began to heal. It was as if he was being reborn. Even the stage violently trembled from his change, and under his feet, cracks were spreading out. Layers of origin power visible by the naked eye started to surround and revolve around him like a shield made out of a layer of origin power. This aura is strong. His strength is changing and it's increasing. Heavens! He already reached the peak of the second level of the origin realm. What martial skill is this? It can perform changes to his own essence. Feeling Ding Chu's aura, which was constantly strengthening, everyone unendingly exclaimed in surprise. Impossible. He actually cultivated this skill, but how is it possible? So many core disciples studied it for years, yet they were not successful. However, he was. Chen Wangxi's beautiful eyes were perfectly round, and on her cold and proud face was shock. Wangxi, what martial skill is it? Chen Hui and the others asked simultaneously. It is titled as the rank 5 martial skill, which is the hardest to cultivate in my Lingyun school. It is also named as the strongest rank 5 martial skill, the murderous 7 injuring fists. Chen Wangxi's tone was filled with surprise and admiration. Just at that time, Ding Chu suddenly explosively yelled, separated his legs and stamped down with power. 2 deep holes got punched out on the stage, and he put both of his legs in them. After that, he clenched one of his hands and punched towards Chu Feng through the air. Wua the fist howled as it was punched out. Formless origin power surged out, and it gradually materialized. It formed into a half-transparent origin power fist, with might that was seemingly unstoppable as it flew towards Chu Feng. The fist was extremely quick, and there was almost no way to dodge nor avoid it. Facing that situation, Chu Feng immediately waved his right arm and threw the golden pike out. Bang, the two things collided, and instantly, an ear-piercing boom exploded out. The strong energy ripples permeated through the air and formed into a tornado made out of streams of air, and it started engulfing everything. Quite some methods, but let me see how you're going to block the next ones. Ding Chu coldly smiled and angrily yelled out again. He threw out several fists, and the densely packed origin power fists howled in the air. The power of every single fist was no weaker than the first one. That might was rather terrifying. I'll show you how I will block this. Seeing that, Chu Feng coldly snorted and suddenly grasped with his left hand. A golden shield came in a shape. The shield was very large, and after putting it in front of him, it was exactly big enough to be able to defend himself. Boom, 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 just at that time, the origin power fists arrived and started to endlessly strike the golden shield. Strong force quickly dimmed the golden shield as it was unable to hold back against the force, and it was going to disappear soon. I do not believe that I will lose to you today. Chu Feng grinded his teeth and started to continually channel the spirit power within his body into the golden shield on his left hand. With that, it maintained the status of the golden shield and held back against Ding Chu's murderous 7 injuring fists. He blocked it. Everyone on scene took in a breath of cool air. The power of the origin power fist was no small matter, and even some experts who were there had to seriously treat it. That was because the murderous 7 injuring fists were not comparable to normal rank 5 martial skills. It was one of the best skills within rank 5 martial skills. However, Chu Feng blocked such a strong attack. In contrast to others, Chen Wangxi tightly frowned and said pessimistically, "This won't do. Chu Feng can't go on for too long. The murderous 7 injuring fists are not simple rank 5 martial skills. It is absolutely not as simple as you think it is." In actuality, it was just as how Chen Wangxi said it was. Although Chu Feng successfully defended against Ding Chu's attack, he only defended against it. He was not even able to counterattack. I'd like to see how long you can go on for. Suddenly, the air around Ding Chu quivered and his aura changed once again. The origin power fists he was throwing out abruptly strengthened again, and its speed kept on increasing. Its might was extremely fierce. Bang, 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 the origin power fists were half-transparent, and they continuously exploded on the golden shield. Chu Feng had troubles bearing against the strong force, and he started to back away step by step. Damn it. How is this guy's strength so strong? Chu Feng had no choice but to look directly at Ding Chu. With his strength, even if his opponents were at the second level of the origin realm, he could still easily defeat them. However, Ding Chu was different. Common sense could not be applied to him. His methods were extremely strong. Up until now, He was the strongest opponent Chu Feng had faced within his generation. Idiot, do you want me to lend you my strength? Within Chu Feng's brain, Egge's naughty voice came ranging out. No need. I will use my own strength to defeat him. Chu Feng was very stubborn because he did not reach a dead end yet where he would need to rely on Egge's cultivation. He was going to use his own power to defeat Ding Chu. With a thought, a layer of spirit formation power surged out, and it covered the golden shield. At that moment, the hardness of the golden shield immediately increased by several times. Despite that, the origin power fists got even fiercer. They had no way of breaking the shield. After using the spirit formation power to raise the defense of the golden shield, Chu Feng formed his right hand into a fist, and a golden-colored longsword appeared within his hand. He operated the mysterious technique, and his spiritual energy boiled. Not only did he stop his retreating steps, he even started to advance forward. Look, that Chu Feng is going forward. He is withstanding the murderous 7 injuring fists. Heavens, how is that possible? To be able to hold back such a strong martial skill is already a miracle, and now he can still go forward. Everyone exclaimed in surprise, and the crowd stirred up. That kind of battle already exceeded their imagination, and it could be said to be the most intense battle in the history of New Excellence assemblies. It surpassed everyone's understanding towards the young generation, and completely overturned their imagination. It wasn't only a match between two new, outstanding participators in the assembly. It was a match between geniuses, two real geniuses. At that instant, Chu Feng was holding a golden shield in one hand and a golden longsword in the other. Even though origin power fists were endlessly exploding all around him, Chu Feng was not affected by that, as if nothing could stop his steps forward. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps. Every step that Chu Feng took would violently shake the stage and leave a deep footprint there. Every step he took, he would exhaust a huge amount of spiritual energy and pay an extremely large price. But even so, it did not diminish his determination. He clenched onto the shield in his left hand tighter and tighter, as well as holding the longsword in his right hand stabler and stabler. If one looked in detail, they would discover that there were lightning flickering within his eyes. That was not caused by the 3 thunder styles, but rather the reaction that came from Chu Feng's body. At that moment, Chu Feng already brought his power out to the extreme. That was Chu Feng at his peak. How is this happening? How can Chu Feng do all this? He's only at the 8th level of the spirit realm. Su Hen's gaze tightened, and tension was on his strong and healthy face. Not to mention Su Hen, even Su Ro widened her little mouth in shock. Although she already knew that Chu Feng was a genius that was hard to come by, she did not expect that Chu Feng would be strong to this degree. I do not believe that you can hold off my murderous 7 injuring fists. Seeing that his own offense could not shake Chu Feng, Ding Chu also got thoroughly angered. He roared again, and the surrounding origin power spread out and away. His aura strengthened by several times once again, and at that instant, he entered the 3rd level of the origin realm. What is happening? Ding Chu's cultivation changed again. Why is he suddenly emitting the aura of the 3rd level of the origin realm? Was he already at the 3rd level of the origin realm at the start, and used special techniques to conceal his true strength? Is it that his current cultivation is his real cultivation? As they felt Ding Chu's change in cultivation, people felt that it was unbelievable. No, he did not hide his strength, but rather he increased his strength. This is the power of the murderous 7 injuring fists. He used that to increase his cultivation. I never would have guessed that Ding Chu's talent was like this, to be able to cultivate the murderous 7 injuring fists to the 3rd layer. Chen Wangxi had disbelief written all across her face. In the eyes of many, she was already a cultivating genius. However, when compared to Ding Chu, she was only mediocre. As she was a core disciple of the Lingyun School, she deeply knew the strength of the murderous 7 injuring fists. Although it was a rank 5 martial skill, it was one of the core martial skills of the Lingyun School, and it was not able to be grasped by ordinary disciples. What? He used a martial skill to increase his strength from the 2nd level to the 3rd level. How is there such a strong martial skill in the world? After hearing Chen Wang's words, Chen Hui and the others were astonished, and they could not remain calm anymore. The murderous 7 injuring fists were way too strong. That martial skill was certainly the strongest martial skill that they had ever seen. Wait, Chu Feng did not stop moving forward. He's still continuing, yet his aura hasn't changed. What is this? How can he do this? How is he supporting himself with the cultivation of the 8th level of the spirit realm to hold back against such strong attacks? However, after looking more carefully, the complexion of Chen Hui and the others changed greatly once again. They were stupefied as they discovered the one who was pressing forward was still Chu Feng, even when Ding Chu's cultivation changed from the 2nd level of the origin realm to the 3rd level of the origin realm. In addition to the strengthening in essence of his murderous 7 injuring fists. This is too terrifying. Is that Chu Feng a monster? This defies common sense. Everyone was ceaselessly shocked. An appalled expression was hung on their faces, and some people even trembled, because they felt that they were witnessing the birth of an extraordinary genius. Under the gazes of innumerable people, Chu Feng continued forward step by step. Finally, he arrived in front of Ding Chu, with a golden shield clenched by his left hand and a golden longsword held by his right hand. He pointed at Ding Chu, then said, "This is the end." Asterisk whoosh asterisk. In the instant that he finished talking, Chu Feng attacked with a flash. Lightning under his feet surged and he disappeared within a blink. When he reappeared, he was behind Ding Chu. Don't underestimate me. Ding Chu's reactions were extremely quick. He spun his body around and threw out a punch. In the range in which they could almost reach, an origin power fist went straight towards Chu Feng. HMPH. Chu Feng coldly snorted and dissipated the golden shield in his left hand. Both of his hands tightly clenched the golden longsword as he slightly leaned to the side and dodged the origin power fist. Chu Feng then arrived in front of Ding Chu. Putting power in his arms, he stabbed straight. With a poof, the golden longsword piercing into the chest of Ding Chu. Wah! The longsword went straight through Ding Chu's chest, and his complexion instantly became ghastly white. Not only did he stop the attacks from his hands, he opened his mouth and a mouthful of blood sprayed out. Suddenly, he howled towards the sky as if releasing all the bitterness in his head. After roaring for a good while, he fell on the ground with a poof and laid on the stage without power. Both of his eyes were dull, as if they did not even have any strength. It could be seen that the overwhelming, murderous 7 injuring fists had a great burden on him, and he had already reached the limit. Looking back at Chu Feng, although his countenance was pale as well with dripping drops of sweat which were as big as beans, clothing completely soaked by sweat, rough breathing, and was clearly tired, he was still standing. Nothing was the same as he stood on the seemingly desolate stage after the great battle. Chu Feng won. At the end, Chu Feng won in the confrontation between two geniuses at their peak. A disciple from a second-rate school successfully defeated a core disciple from a first-rate school, a genius-level disciple from the Lingyun school, and successfully became the champion of the new Excellence Assembly. Asterisk clap tilde asterisk. At that instant, thunder-like clapping sounds resonated everywhere. They were cheering for Chu Feng, because after the young man who was at the 8th level of the spirit realm successfully defeated a person who was at the 2nd level of the origin realm, they could not control the excited emotions within their heart, and they couldn't help but want to clap and cheer for the young man. Chu Feng, you're the best. Other than the resonation of excited cheering, a beautiful figure suddenly leapt onto the stage and hugged Chu Feng. Looking at that scene, everyone couldn't help but be dumbfounded, because that person was none other than the second daughter of Su Hen, the Vermilion Bird City's lord, Su Mei. What's this? Isn't that the Su family's third lady, Su Mei? Isn't she the fiancée of xianxia? Why is she so close to Chu Feng like this? What relationship do those two have? The crowd never-endingly guessed. After all, people from the Vermilion Bird City knew that Su Mei was Shangyuan Ya's fiancée. Their marriage was already determined when Su Mei was born. However, at that instant, what did Su Mei's actions mean? She embraced Chu Feng in front of so many people. Wasn't that slapping the face of the Shangyuan family, slapping the face of Shangyuan Ye? Damn it! Shangyuan Ye, who was standing outside of the plaza, tightly clenched his fists. Cold glints shot out of his eyes because Su Mei's actions were undoubtedly showing that she had a relationship with another man instead of him, and it made him lose all face. Rower this. Even Su Hen greatly changed his expression, and he was aware that the situation was amiss. Father, in any case, you already promised me that as long as Chu Feng won against Ding Chu, you would cancel the marriage between little Mei and that Shangyuan Ye. Since this marriage will get canceled sooner or later, why do you need to worry about other people's views? You should be able to see that Chu Feng is a lot more outstanding when compared to Shangyuan Ye, right? Wouldn't it be better to give little Mei to Chu Feng? Su Ro charmingly smiled as if she already predicted that ending. This matter isn't as simple as you think it is. Su Hen didn't know what to do, and he was obviously in a difficult position. But just at that time, Su Mei did something that astounded the crowd even more. She stuck out her soft red lips and kissed Chu Feng's face. Chu Feng did not avoid it either, and that became a scene that made everyone stupefied. The third lady of the Su family, the fiancée of the Shangyuan family, Shangyuan Ye, kissed Chu Feng in front of everyone. Damn it, I will kill that Chu Feng. Shangyuan Ye had no way of accepting that. The flames of fury assaulted his heart, and as he spoke, he was preparing to attack. Bam, but at that moment, a dried-up yet powerful palm patted Shangyuan Ya's shoulder. A wave of strong, profound power surged into his body, and within an instant, all of the origin power fluctuations got pressed back down. Grandfather. Turning his head and looking back, Shangyuan Ye couldn't help but be at a loss because at that moment, standing behind him was a single-eyed old man who had a blind eye. The old man also had white hair and beard, and that person was the current family master of the Shangyuan family, Shangyuan Yu. What are you doing? You want to attack him in front of Su Hen. Do not forget that Su Hen is the lord of this vermilion bird city. Shangyuan Yu's voice was very calm, but Shangyuan Ye cast his gaze towards Chu Feng and he grinded his teeth in anger. The time is not ripe yet. My Shangyuan family cannot be hostile towards the Su family yet. Shangyuan Yu said in a low voice. Then do we leave him and do nothing? Shangyuan Ye was indignant. No. Shangyuan Yu shook his head and viciously said, this person must be removed. At that instant, Chu Feng was completely submerged in the happiness of victory, and only when Su Mei kissed with deep emotion did he suddenly pull himself together. He couldn't help but hold onto Su Mei's tender small waist and said while chuckling, have you been captivated by my handsome bravery and wish to give yourself to me? I, who wants to give themselves to you, bastard. She did all that from the heat of the moment as she got overexcited, so that was why she took it a bit too far. At that moment, being held by the waist by Chu Feng, Su Mei's little face became pink, and she embarrassedly pushed Chu Feng away. However, at that moment, Ding Chu, who was laying nearby, started to painful bawl. His body convulsed and his aura became extremely weak. At the end, his pale white skin became ashen, and both of his eyes overturned. White foam came out from his mouth, and it was as if he was going to die. Damn it. This is just a round of sparring, but you dare to murder Ding Chu. Seeing that the situation wasn't right, the city lord of the Wind Cloud City rushed forward, pointed at Chu Feng and angrily rebuked. Before, Ding Chu's attacks were even more ruthless than Chu Feng. If it wasn't because Chu Feng had strength that exceeded others, he would have already died by Ding Chu's mad explosions. Now you blame him for murdering. If he really did have intentions to murder, Ding Chu would already be dead. How would he be laying down here panting? Su Mei, who stood next to Chu Feng, resentfully refuted. The Wind Cloud City lord was speechless while facing Su Mei's reprimands. He was clearly very embarrassed. He could point and blame Chu Feng and even attack him, however. when facing the Su family's third lady. He did not even dare to say anything back. The injuries that Ding Chu's has right now were not inflicted by Chu Feng. They were done by himself. Just at that time, xianxia slowly walked over. "What do you mean?" The city lord of the Wind Cloud City was confused. "There are 7 layers to the murderous 7 injuring fists. Every layer can stimulate hidden strength within one's body and gain power that exceeds the standard. A price also comes with power, as every layer will do a certain amount of damage to the body. According to legends, after cultivating to the 7th level, one could gain power that was dozens of times stronger than themselves. However, when that power disappears, they will be paralyzed and lose all their cultivation. The murderous 7 injuring fists, when the fists are thrown out, they will certainly have the power to murder their enemies, but it is also a true double-edged sword. The stronger power that they gained, the larger the price they had to pay." Ding Chu cultivated to the 3rd layer. Although he did not reach the point in which he destroyed his cultivation, he will be injured greatly. He will require at least 2 months' worth of rest before he can leave the bed. Seeing Ding Chu, who was endlessly howling and enduring extreme pain, xianxia explained in detail. After hearing those words, Chu Feng and the others couldn't help but cast their pitiful gazes towards Ding Chu. The principle of "when things reach the extreme, they can only go in the opposite direction" was currently proven by Ding Chu. However, at that moment, xianxia cast her meaningful gaze towards Chu Feng. To be able to force Ding Chu to that step, gain victory at the end, and also stand there along with those of the unrelated, Chu Feng left an extremely deep impression on her. She did not know whether her Lingyun school had a genius like that. However, at least within the people she had seen, he was the one with the more terrifying innate aptitude. It was unimaginable how strong Chu Feng would be when he reached the same age as her. After that, the curtains of the new Excellence Assembly fell, and Chu Feng gave everyone a huge surprise. The battle between him and Ding Chu could be said to be the most exciting match from all the new Excellence Assemblies. The impression Chu Feng left was unerasable. Everyone felt that they witnessed the emergence of a genius that appeared from the Azure Dragon School. That genius that could change the destiny of the Azure Dragon School. He could also very possibly bring the formerly most glorious school in the 9 provinces back on its magnificent road. Even if it wouldn't return to its flourishing past, it was likely that it could become a first-rate school. Even the Golden Purple City received attention. Many people that looked down upon the Golden Purple City started to getting closer to xianxia. The reason for that was naturally also because of Chu Feng. Since Chu Feng was the champion of the new Excellence Assembly this time, the Gold and Purple City were exempt from this year's taxes. That made xianxia very happy. But the thing he was most happy about was not that he was free from taxes. It was that a genius like Chu Feng appeared in the Gold and Purple City. It made his face shine, and he could finally raise his head in front of the many city lords. The new Excellence Assembly ended there. The name Chu Feng was centered around everyone as they discussed. As for Chu Feng himself, he did not leave the Vermilion Bird City. He accepted the invitation of Su Hen and stayed for a few more days in the Vermilion Bird City. Everyone could understand that Chu Feng already showed his talent, and those who had a bit of intelligence would do their best to get closer to him. Not to mention Su Hen. Even the city lords of other cities started to inquire news about the Chu family and wanted to hiddenly be in good terms with Chu Feng's family. "Chu Feng, you didn't listen to me again. Did you forget what I told you? Cultivating requires gradual progress. If you continue like this, it will cost greatly sooner or later." In a certain garden in the Vermilion Bird City, Chu Feng and Su Mei walked shoulder to shoulder. Although she felt happy because of Chu Feng's victory, the little girl still worried about Chu Feng's rapidly increasing cultivation. "Heh, don't worry. Don't you understand what kind of person I, Chu Feng, am? I'm not someone who is short-sighted. I know what to do about my cultivation, and I won't harm myself. Besides, if I can't defeat Gong Lion in 1 year, even if he doesn't kill me, I wouldn't have any face to continue living. After all, the words that should have been said were said. Chu Feng chuckled. You really are too rash. Mentioning that issue, Su Mei's little face was full of worry. Gong Lion was the #1 disciple in the Azure Dragon School. But in reality, even #1 disciples in some first-rate schools were not as strong as Gong Lion. Gong Lion was a true genius. At the age of 20, he was already at the first level of the profound realm and fairly equal to Su Ro. It would really be a fantasy story in order for Chu Feng to chase up to Gong Lion in one short year. Heh, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Believe me. On the other hand, you sisters are born in such a wealthy and powerful family. Why did you choose to enter the Azure Dragon School? Chu Feng felt that Su Mei's emotions were off, so he quickly changed the topic. Mentioning that matter, Su Mei's sweet and beautiful little face changed, and a complicated expression rose from her face. Whatever. If it's an inconvenience, just pretend that I never asked. Chu Feng tactfully smiled. It's not. Seeing that, Su Mei instantly tensed up as though afraid Chu Feng would have any bad thoughts towards her. After carefully observing her surroundings, she tugged Chu Feng's arm and pulled him into a room. After closing the doors to that room, Su Mei looked through the door cracks and watched for a while. Then she said to Chu Feng, "Use your spirit power to feel if there's anyone nearby." I did. It's extremely safe. Chu Feng also knew that the matter was not normal. However, the more he thought, the more curious he was because he felt that there was some secret hidden away. It's not that I don't trust you, but this issue is extremely important. Originally, it should not be mentioned to any other person, however, since you asked, Su Mei was in a slightly difficult situation. If it's a secret, then it's fine. Chu Feng smiled. He did not want to make things difficult for Su Mei. At that instant, Su Mei gnashed her teeth before saying, "Who do you think is the strongest person in the history of the Azure province?" Of course, it's the school founder of the Azure Dragon School, the Azure Dragon founder. Wasn't he the strongest expert that year in the continent of the 9 provinces, and even the Jiang dynasty was fearful towards him? Chu Feng replied. Nope. Su Mei shook her head and said, the Azure Dragon founder is indeed strong, but he is not the strongest person that appeared in the Azure province. Oh, there's other people even stronger than that old man. Chu Feng got even more curious. However, this is just a legend that has no verification. It was said that 10,000 years ago, the continent of the 9 provinces was still just a wilderness. The population that time was not even 1 out of 100 of the population right now. The Jiang dynasty did not appear yet, and the various schools were not created either. The word martial cultivation was very unfamiliar to people, because people who had the cultivating methods would not pass their martial cultivating methods down to outsiders. So, there were extremely few martial cultivators at that time. Only 9 powerful families knew the martial cultivating methods, and those 9 families occupied the 9 provinces. The family that occupied the Azure province was called the King family. TN. Although King is Azure, but for naming sakes I will leave it as King family, so the Azure province is originated from this King family. Chu Feng asked. That's right. The names of the 9 provinces are taken from the 9 martial cultivating families. The 9 powerful families had equal strength, and they all occupied 1 province each, and formed the situation in which no one attacked each other. That was maintained for roughly 200 years, but it was all changed by one unforeseen event. Su Mei said, unforeseen event. What event? Chu Feng was increasingly curious. On that year, a boy was born into the King family. On the day that the boy was born, golden, colorful light engulfed the entire sky. 4 enormous beasts surged and roared midair, and they shook the entire continent. That boy was naturally intelligent. According to the legends, 1 month after he was born, he could speak. On the 2nd month, he could stand up and walk. When he was 1 year old, he started to learn the 4 arts. He was familiar with all the ancient books in the world at the age of 5. Su Mei said, there was such a child prodigy. Chu Feng was shocked. That speed of growth really surpassed the cognition of normal people. That wasn't even much. The most important part was when that boy was 7 years old. The bones in his body were at their best, and they were equivalent to the physique of 12-year-old normal children. So, when he was 7 years old, he started martial cultivation. The most scary thing was that he was also extremely impressive in martial cultivation. He entered the Origin realm when he was 9 years old, Profound realm when he was 11 years old, and Heaven realm when he was 13 years old. He swept across the 9 provinces and made the king family the overlord of the 9 provinces. He was that strong, entering the Heaven realm at the age of 13, swept through the 9 provinces and united the continent. Chu Feng was shocked again. Up until now, the Heaven realm was the known peak of martial cultivation. It was quite terrifying when that person entered it at the age of 13. Chu Feng was 15 years old this year, and with the cultivation of the 8th level of the spirit realm, he was already viewed as a genius by many people. To enter the Heaven realm at the age of 13 was too impressive. Even Chu Feng was quite stunned because when compared to that person, he was simply as ordinary as he could be. Strong. The strong part hasn't even come yet. When he was 15 years old, he entered a completely new world of martial cultivation. A completely new world of martial cultivation. He had might that was like a lord's arrival to the world and power that could move mountains and fill oceans. With a wave of his hand, he could destroy any city, and he could slaughter living things like stepping on ants. He was the true lord of the world, and he ruled the fates of all. So people called those who were in that realm as martial lords. Martial lord. So after the Heaven realm, there's still a martial lord realm. Chu Feng was quite astonished and he couldn't help but ask, "Who is that person called?" "He is called King xianxia," Su Mei replied. King xianxia. Chu Feng deeply remembered that name because he had to remember such a character, a true genius, a true influential person. King xianxia is the strongest person that appeared in the continent of the 9 provinces. However, because that matter happened too long ago and many changes occurred to the 9 provinces, very little people know about it now. However, the strangest thing is that just after King xianxia became a martial lord, he suddenly disappeared. There were many thoughts on why he disappeared. Some people said he left because the continent of the 9 provinces could not contain him anymore. Some people also said that his martial cultivation went against the heavens and broke the rules of martial principles. From that, he received the punishment of the heavens and died on the year that he became a martial lord. Up until now, that was the most reasonable way of death that people said. Is he really dead? Such a strong person died just like that. Chu Feng did not really believe it. How could such a strong person die because someone said so? He did indeed die. According to legends, he knew that he didn't have much time left, so before death, he created a tomb for himself. The tomb ran through half of the Azure province, and he set up 4 entrances. The names of the 4 entrances are called Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. These 4 entrances is it. Chu Feng was enlightened. At that instant, he suddenly understood that the 2 evil tombs in the Azure Dragon mountain range and the Vermilion Bird mountain range were possibly interconnected. However, there were 2 more places. It meant that there were 2 more evil tombs within the Azure province. That's right. One of the entrances is in the Vermilion Bird mountain range of the Vermilion Bird City. Other than that, there's also the Azure Dragon mountain range of the Azure Dragon School, the White Tiger mountain range of the White Tiger Villa, and the Black Tortoise mountain range of the Black Tortoise City. Gong Lion's family is the overlord of the Black Tortoise City right now. Su Mei explained. That means that Gong Lion and you 2 sisters went to the Azure Dragon School for King xianxia's tomb. King xianxia's tomb has many layers of mechanisms, and it is not something that we can open. However, my Su family always felt that the reason why the Azure Dragon founder could become the one person in the continent 1,000 years ago was because he opened the tomb of King xianxia and got some benefits from it. When he left the mountain, He was known as the Azure Dragon founder. After being successful in his martial cultivation, he created the Azure Dragon School at the Azure Dragon mountain range. It was very possibly a type of gratitude towards xianxia. Although the Azure Dragon School declined quite a bit, that is because the absolute technique that the Azure Dragon founder used that year was not passed down. However, it's very possible that it is still within the Azure Dragon School. This is the reason why me and my sister entered the Azure Dragon School. As for Gong Lion, his Gong family is occupying the Black Tortoise City at all costs, so I'm sure he must know something about this, and is staying in the Azure Dragon School for the same reasons as us. Su Mei spoke the truth. So it's like this. Chu Feng, who knew the truth, was endlessly excited. He never would have thought that there were 4 more evil tombs within the Azure province. He was unable to explore the Azure Dragon mountain range and the Vermilion Bird mountain range. But it did not mean that he could not explore the 2 other evil tombs. After all, he did gain some benefits in the Vermilion Bird mountain range, so perhaps he could get even better benefits in the other 2 tombs. This is a secret that cannot be spread. If the Lingyun School or the Qilin Prince Mansion knows about it, a crisis will certainly be stirred up. It may even affect the Jiang dynasty. If that huge monster knows about this, I'm afraid they would instantly start moving, and at that time we wouldn't get any benefits at all. Su Mei reminded solemnly, "Don't worry, I will not tell anyone else about this." Chu Feng raised his hand to promise, then chuckled and said, "On the other hand, you have really fallen for me to tell me a secret like this, right? You, shameless, who would like you?" After Chu Feng said that, Su Mei's small face instantly reddened and even her white, soft neck became red. She pushed open the doors and ran out, then pointed at Chu Feng and said, "This is your room. If there's nothing, don't run around everywhere." He, this girl really likes having a red face. Seeing the departing back of Su Mei, Chu Feng chuckled and said, "Idiot, you've gotten really lucky this time." Just at that time, Egga's pleasant voice rang out, and he could hear that she was extremely excited. "I know there's 2 more evil tombs for exploration, right?" Chu Feng smiled. "Ha, you know nothing. How can an evil tomb be as large as to run through half of the Azure province?" Eggy said disdainfully, "Your meaning is, if these 4 evil tombs really are one, it would certainly not be evil tombs. They would be Emperor Tomb." Chu Feng failed to understand it, but he could still hear the impressiveness of it. In short, an Emperor Tomb is quite an impressive thing, but you wouldn't understand if I said too much. Just see an Emperor Tomb as boundless treasure. If there really is an Emperor Tomb in the Azure province, that guy called King Xianxia would certainly not be as simple as a martial lord. The records of history could very possibly have been slightly wrong. Eggy said, "Not only a martial lord, how many more realms are there in the journey of martial cultivation?" Chu Feng was incessantly excited, and he suddenly felt that he still lacked experience and did not have knowledge about a lot of things. "Those realms are too far off from you, so it is useless if I say too much to you." In any case, a huge person appeared in the 9 provinces, and it was enough to shake the world. If the tomb is still undamaged, you will need to quickly get strong. After that, kill everyone who knows about this Emperor Tomb in the 9 provinces to avoid any information leak. Actually, that's not enough. You should completely annihilate the 9 provinces. Anyway, this information cannot be spread out. Eggy reminded solemnly. "What? Annihilate the 9 provinces? You want me to kill everyone on this continent? Isn't that a bit too crazy?" After hearing those words, Chu Feng felt chills going down his spine. Although he could be heartless while killing enemies, he could not slaughter ordinary citizens and those completely unrelated to him for his own personal goals. What do you know? Emperor tombs are the biggest treasures in the entire world. Not to mention what cultivation I will reach after consuming the source energy of that King Xianxia. You can rely on this Emperor Tomb and become an invincible person. Don't you want to know what happened with your family? Don't you want to know why your parents left you and did not look after you? There will undoubtedly be reasons within the tomb. From my estimations, I believe that your family were met with a huge catastrophe and were forced to send you here. As for whether your family still exists or not, I have no clue. It is possible that your parents are dead and your family perished. Those who are able to destroy your family and kill your parents are an even greater power. Think about it. If you can't even control the world spirit that your family left for you in your body, how can you face the power that is even stronger than your family? Wake up. This world is not as small as you think. There are countless experts and geniuses are everywhere. Powerful powers have been around for several million years, and they stand on the high and steep peak of the world. You are only viewing the sky from the bottom of a well. However, you're very lucky. Lucky that in this deep well there are boundless treasures. As long as you get these treasures, you will have the ability to go against the experts that are outside of the well. You can even rely on them to avenge your family. Eggy narrated, "Don't try to trick me into doing that. On what basis do you say that my family is perished? On what basis do you say that my parents are dead? There is absolutely no evidence, and perhaps they have other reasons." Chu Feng coldly snorted. He was a bit angry because from the bottom of his heart, he really did not hope that anything bad happened to his parents and his family. Okay, I admit, your family may still exist and your parents living well. However, even if your family still exists, do you have any face to return with your current cultivation? Do you have any face to see your parents? You are too weak right now. In the world of martial cultivation, you are a real ant. They don't even need to use their fingers to squish you to death. They could just randomly fart, and your body would be torn with shattered bones. They could just randomly blow, and you would disappear like a strand of smoke. Eggy's words were like as sharp as blades as they pierced Chu Feng's ears. She kept on stabbing Chu Feng's pride. Yet those direct words were what made Chu Feng understand how weak he was. It was true. He did need to become stronger. He needed to become extremely strong. Right now, he was no genius. It was just that the people around him were too mediocre, so he was made into a genius. A true genius should be like King xianxia, and perhaps there were many geniuses like him outside of the continent of the 9 provinces. Fine, the treasures within emperor tombs will all belong to me, but I will not kill innocent people because of my own greed. Chu Feng said gravely, soft-hearted, wait until someone really spreads this secret away from the continent. When those real experts all flock over, you will regret it. That's right. I'm still human, so I can't be as cold-blooded as you. If the news of Emperor Tombs really spreads out one day and the treasures get taken by others, I would not have half a word of complaint. Even if I don't rely on these treasures, I can still become strong by myself. Chu Feng was very firm on his decision. Whatever. I won't argue with you. Even if you tried to slaughter the people on this continent, you wouldn't even have that ability. However, let's depart now. Eggy urged, leave right now, that's not too good, right? After all, I already promised Su Ro and Su Mei's father to stay a few extra days. Then leave tomorrow. You must leave tomorrow because this cannot be delayed. That's fine. After deciding, Chu Feng originally wanted to refine all the spiritual beads he got. However, after some thinking, he was afraid that Su Mei would say that he aimed for short-term benefits, so Chu Feng did not refine them. He had the spiritual beads within his hands, so he could break through at any time he wished. When the sky became dark, the feast that Su Hen specially prepared for Chu Feng also started. On the table, there were only 4 people, Su Mei, Su Ro, Chu Feng, and Su Hen. Nevertheless, the table was extremely big and it was filled with sumptuous food and drinks. Chu Feng had never eaten those things before, and with a glance, they made one's appetite increase dramatically. It was just that because of the large-sized table, the 4 of them sat very scatteredly. Idiot, why do you only know how to eat meat? Try this. The taste of vegetables are sometimes even more delicious. However, the thing that made people speechless was that Su Mei took the initiative to sit near Chu Feng and constantly helped Chu Feng to some food. She even occasionally fed Chu Feng. Of course, Chu Feng did not push it away in the slightest, and the two of them helped each other to food and fed each other. That was called sweet. Facing that scene, Su Ro, who already knew her younger sister's heart, chuckled while covering her mouth with her hand. On the other hand, Su Hen had black lines all over his forehead, but he could not say anything, and he sank into the realm of embarrassment. During the feast, Su Hen took out the reward for the new excellence assembly. 10 origin beads. 10 origin beads were equivalent to 10,000 spiritual beads. It was double the supposed reward for the new excellence assembly, and regarding that action, Chu Feng did not decline them because he had no reason to. After all, he knew that the Su family wanted to rope him closer to them. Chu Feng had spirit power, and he had the chance to become Zhuge Lian's disciple. Sooner or later, he would become a world spiritist, and since the Su family also knew about emperor tombs, naturally, they would want Chu Feng to be closer to them so he could serve them to a certain extent. After the feast, Chu Feng returned to his own room. However, just as he returned, someone knocked on the door. A servant came for Chu Feng and said that second lady, Su Ro, seeked him. Chu Feng had quite good impressions towards Su Ro, so naturally, he did not decline. Under the lead of the servant, he entered the palace that Su Ro was living in. Just as Chu Feng entered the palace, two figures walked out from the shadows. One was the lord of the Vermilion Bird City, Su Hen. The other was a thin old man who had white hair. Is everything set up? Looking at the palace of his own daughter, Su Hen spoke. My lord, don't worry. From today on, this Chu Feng will be part of my Su family. The old man strangely smiled and said, although the palace that Su Ro was living in was not big, it was very exquisite. The decorations within the palace were quite unique and grand. As fragrance was emitted everywhere in the palace, one could tell that it was the residence of a girl in an instant. Young Master Chu Feng, please drink some tea. This is fragrant tea of the highest quality, and the second lady specially asked me to prepare it for you. The servant served a pot of tea. Thanks. Chu Feng ate quite a bit of food and drank quite a bit of wine in the feast. At that moment, tea was something that Chu Feng needed. The fragrance of the tea was very special, and there was an indescribable attraction. Nice tea. Chu Feng finished the cup of tea with one gulp, but he still felt thirsty. So he raised the entire pot of tea and poured it into his mouth. After finishing the entire pot of tea, he still wished for more as he wiped his mouth and said, "Where is the second lady?" The second lady said she is waiting for you on the top floor. The servant smiled and said, "Oh, I need to go up." Chu Feng felt that it was a bit strange. Why did she invite him yet not personally welcome him? Instead, he needed to go up himself to find her. However, after some more careful thinking, Chu Feng could understand it. Although Chu Feng was a guest in the Su family, at the end, Su Ro was an elder in the Azure Dragon School. No matter if it was on the topic of identity or strength, she was above him, so it was normal for him to look for Su Ro himself. Thinking to that point, Chu Feng started walk up the stairs. The servant smiled strangely, closed the door to the palace, and silently left that area. The palace had 5 floors, and Chu Feng was slowly walking up. When he walked to the second floor, he felt that something was wrong with his body. His body felt burning hot, and he felt waves of evil fire coming from under his stomach. Looking over, a small tent was raised up. Damn, what is happening? Chu Feng was a bit speechless. He quickly straightened his long robe up and covered up his reactions. Or else, if Suoru saw it, he would certainly be labeled as a rogue. Chu Feng continued upwards. However, when he arrived on the 3rd floor, his bottom part swelled more and more. That made Chu Feng very uncomfortable. Although he was at the prime of youth and a pole sticking out was normal, it was the first time that it was so tough. Damn it, this isn't right. Was there some huge supplements in the feast that stimulated my male nature? Chu Feng was aware that something was off and that he was not in his normal state. At that moment, his neck was thick and red. The blood in his body was boiling, as if some obscure fire lit his entire body on fire. That obscure fire was the evil fire. It filled the brain with desires and made people want to do things between males and females. If it was not vented out, it would harm the body. It seems that food really cannot be eaten randomly. Chu Feng was a bit anxious, and he quickly revolved the spiritual energy within his body to suppress the evil fire within his body. It had to be said that the power of spiritual energy really was wonderful. With that, it really did have some effect. Feeling that his boiling desires were controlled, only then did he dare to continue going upwards. However, when Chu Feng arrived on the 4th level, a wave of fragrance suddenly floated in from the 5th floor. The fragrance seemed to be from a certain flower, and it caused people to be lost within it. Chu Feng could not control himself, and he was attracted to it. He quickened his footsteps, but just as he walked onto the 5th level, Chu Feng heard water splashing sounds and steam pounce towards his face. Crap! Just at that time, Chu Feng suddenly discovered that his spiritual energy was quickly dissipating. In a flash, he lost all his spiritual energy, as if his cultivation was sucked dry by someone. It was like his cultivation, gained from the many years, all vanished. If it was a normal situation, perhaps Chu Feng would calm himself and find the reason why his cultivation disappeared. However, Chu Feng at that instant completely panicked, because the desires suppressed by his spiritual energy madly surged out. It was even several times stronger than before. At that moment, his desires slammed towards his brain, and Chu Feng felt that he was going to lose his rationality soon. He subconsciously prepared to leave that place, or else he felt that something horrible would happen. Asterisk bang clank asterisk. As he panicked, Chu Feng accidentally knocked a porcelain vase over. Although it did not break, it still made a clear sound. Who? Just at that time, a sharp yet sweet female voice abruptly rang out. It was Su Ro. "Don't come over," Chu Feng subconsciously yelled, because just by hearing Su Ro's voice, he could not endure it. Who knew what he would do when he saw Su Ro, who was like a fox spirit? After water splashing sounds sounded out, light footsteps quickly followed. At that instant, Chu Feng wanted to leave, but when he saw the alluring figure within the steam, he couldn't help but stop his movement. Then he cast his gaze, that was densely covered with evil fire, straight towards that beautiful figure. Her wet, long hair scattered along her shoulders, and drops of water were on her slender, soft, and smooth skin as they slowly flowed down. Beautiful, beautiful to the extreme. No matter if it was her fox-like face or her devil-like body, with a glance, lust would break out. "Chu Feng, it really is you. Why have you come here?" Although Su Ro did not expect Chu Feng there, she still charmingly smiled, and thousands types of elegance were manifested. Chu Feng's final consciousness collapsed when he heard that soft and sweet voice. Asterisk whoosh asterisk. If it were others, it would be hard to control themselves when they saw Su Ro like that. No need to mention Chu Feng, who was engulfed by that evil fire. He spread out his arms, stepped with his legs, and with a frog-like jump, he threw himself onto the beautiful Su Ro. "What are you doing?" Seeing Chu Feng leaping towards her, Su Ro's face instantly lost all color and felt that something was amiss. She wanted to dodge, but she discovered that there was not a single ounce of profound power within her body. Although she could see Chu Feng's actions with her eyes, her body could not react to it. Ah tilde tilde tilde. A sharp cry rang out and Su Ro fell on the ground. She was pushed down by Chu Feng, and at that instant, Su Ro's snow-white complexion instantly reddened. Her fox-like, charming big eyes were staring at Chu Feng, and her gaze was filled with shock and fear. She could feel that Chu Feng had something that was fiercely jabbing on her body. Facing that situation, naturally, Su Ro could think what was happening. "Chu Feng, what are you doing? Get up." As she lost herself from the fear, Su Ro wanted to push Chu Feng away, but it was useless as she could not use any strength. Her soft and smooth hands rubbed Chu Feng's body, and it made Chu Feng's desires even stronger. Two peaks appeared in Chu Feng's eyes. Perhaps because of the overfierce actions before, Su Ro's towel was pulled down a bit, and a piece of snow white instantly appeared. As he looked, Chu Feng swallowed some saliva. Looking up, it was the white and tender neck and her delicate, perfect face. Su Ro's attractive eyes were lifelessly looking at him. Her eyes were a bit moist, and she looked quite pitiful. Her long eyebrows faintly trembled, and fear was evident. Her face was scarlet red like an additive that let Chu Feng lose all reason. Su Ro's closed soft and red lips emitted endless attractiveness. Chu Feng, have you gone insane? Let me go, mm. Suddenly, Chu Feng opened his mouth and fiercely bit down. Su Ro was talking to Chu Feng and being caught off guard. She felt that her red lips were sealed shut. Tilde. It was the first time in her life that Su Ro experienced that. She never felt that before, yet it had a unique feeling. Su Ro's body instantly went limp and lost all ability to resist. She powerlessly laid on the ground. At that instant, it wasn't that Su Ro gave up on resisting. It just that she had no strength. She could only let Chu Feng do what he wished on her body and let him madly take everything. Damn it, who did this to us? Su Ro already saw the inklings and knew that the current Chu Feng lost all reason. He was clearly being influenced by drugs, and her cultivation was restricted as well. Someone should have done something without anyone knowing. However, not ordinary people could do that to her within her vermilion bird city. This smell. At that moment, Su Ro noticed that there was a strange fragrance in the bathroom. That scent was quite familiar, and from that she understood. Yet she felt that it was hard to believe. It was a special type of drug that could restrict one's cultivation. It was an extremely precious thing, and it was a treasure that her father Su Hen collected. Its father. Why did he do this? At that instant, Su Ro was completely baffled. She could not think of the reason why her own father would harm her. Yet that thing really did belong to him. Other than her father, there was no one else that had it within the Su family. Also, other than her father, there was no one else that could put that special type of drug into her bathroom. However, at that moment, Su Ro's face changed greatly. She painfully screeched, because she felt that a foreign object intruded into her body and tore her most precious thing. Drops of blood slowly flowed out. Su Ro madly struggled and wanted to push Chu Feng away. But Chu Feng, who was on her body, was like a mountain, and she could not move him in any way. She could only let Chu Feng, who had bloodshot eyes and was panting roughly, press her down. She was completely helpless. Chu Feng's eyes, that were consumed by desire, glared like a tiger at Su Ro's body. He was like a hungry wolf that had a rumbling stomach and drooled for a long time while looking at a little white rabbit. Two peaks appeared in Chu Feng's eyes. Perhaps because of the overfierce actions before, Su Ro's towel was pulled down a bit, and a piece of snow white instantly appeared. As he looked, Chu Feng swallowed some saliva. Looking up, it was the white and tender neck and her delicate, perfect face. Su Ro's attractive eyes were lifelessly looking at him. Her eyes were a bit moist, and she looked quite pitiful. Her long eyebrows faintly trembled, and fear was evident. Her face was scarlet red like an additive that let Chu Feng lose all reason. Su Ro's closed soft and red lips emitted endless attractiveness. Chu Feng, have you gone insane? Let me go, mm. Suddenly, Chu Feng opened his mouth and fiercely bit down. Su Ro was talking to Chu Feng and being caught off guard. She felt that her red lips were sealed shut. It was the first time in her life that Su Ro experienced that. She never felt that before, yet it had a unique feeling. Su Ro's body instantly went limp and lost all ability to resist. She powerlessly laid on the ground. At the same time that Chu Feng was kissing Su Ro, his hands demonically flew everywhere and ripped the towel on Su Ro's body into pieces. Her perfect body was shown in front of him while being semi-covered. At that instant, it wasn't that Su Ro gave up on resisting. It just that she had no strength. She could only let Chu Feng do what he wished on her body and let him madly take everything. Damn it, who did this to us? Su Ro already saw the inklings and knew that the current Chu Feng lost all reason. He was clearly being influenced by drugs, and her cultivation was restricted as well. Someone should have done something without anyone knowing. However, not ordinary people could do that to her within her vermilion bird city. This smell. At that moment, Su Ro noticed that there was a strange fragrance in the bathroom. That scent was quite familiar, and from that she understood. Yet she felt that it was hard to believe. It was a special type of drug that could restrict one's cultivation. It was an extremely precious thing, and it was a treasure that her father Su Hen collected. Its father. Why did he do this? At that instant, Su Ro was completely baffled. She could not think of the reason why her own father would harm her. Yet that thing really did belong to him. Other than her father, there was no one else that had it within the Su family. Also, other than her father, there was no one else that could put that special type of drug into her bathroom. However, at that moment, Su Ro's face changed greatly. She painfully screeched, because she felt that a foreign object intruded into her body and tore her most precious thing. Drops of blood slowly flowed out. Chu Feng, you bastard, clear your head. Su Ro madly struggled and wanted to push Chu Feng away. But Chu Feng, who was on her body, was like a mountain, and she could not move him in any way. She could only let Chu Feng, who had bloodshot eyes and was panting, roughly press her down. She was completely helpless. Chu Feng massaged his aching brain and gradually opened his eyes. As he was in a daze, there was a smile on the corner of his mouth because he remembered that he had a very beautiful dream. So beautiful that he was not even willing to wake up from it. Within the dream, he did a very comfortable thing. Although he forgot about the details and people, it was very beautiful and hard to forget. Su Ro. But when Chu Feng saw Su Ro, who was completely bare naked next to him and the bloodstain on the ground, he was instantly disarrayed. Associating back to the fragments of memory, Chu Feng thought of an inconceivable thing. It was that he forced Su Mei's elder sister, the second lady of the Su family, Su Ro, down. My gods, why did I do such a thing? Chu Feng was completely dumbfounded and he did not know what to do. No need to blame yourself. This was not your fault. Su Rose had a very cold expression and her voice was very calm. It seemed that she already woke up a long time ago and organized her own emotions. Su Rose stood up, and her pure white, perfect body appeared in front of Chu Feng's eyes again. Seeing that, Chu Feng subconsciously turned his head away and didn't dare to look. No need to put up an act. You've already seen enough last night. Su Ro grinded her teeth and bit her lower lip. She was really furious because not only did Chu Feng look all over her body last night, he even took away her most precious chastity. Although she knew that Chu Feng's actions yesterday were not done voluntarily, when she saw Chu Feng currently having such upright behavior and had such an ashamed expression, Su Ro was still extremely angry. From Su Ro's words, Chu Feng thought about it, and he agreed. As a man, one should be able to dare to act courageously and dare to take responsibility. Since it already happened, how could he escape his responsibility? So he turned his already turned head back and looked at Su Ro's so-called perfect body. Although that glance seemed insignificant, Chu Feng instantly reacted to it. It wasn't that Chu Feng had uncontrollable lust. It was just in front of such a beautiful woman. Those who were male would have a reaction. Not to mention that Chu Feng monopolized the sight in front of him. Su Ro didn't pay attention to Chu Feng either. She wore her pink doo-doo in front of him, and also her snow-white xianxia. However, when she turned her head and saw an upright object, her expression couldn't help but change as she coldly reprimanded. My cultivation has already returned. If you dare to have any evil thoughts towards me, I will break you. I will take responsibility. Chu Feng was not afraid and instead he solemnly vowed, I don't need you to take responsibility, and I hope that you don't spread this out. Also, don't turn your back on little Mei. Su Ro gnashed her teeth and said the last few words. Don't worry, I won't betray little Mei, but I won't betray you either. I will marry you two sisters. Chu Feng said extremely seriously. You. After hearing Chu Feng's words, Su Ro's little face paled from anger, and after that, she fiercely shot Chu Feng a glance and said, You really are too greedy. After saying those words, Su Ro quickly walked out of the bathroom. However, after turning the corner, she stopped and leaned against the wall. She muttered to herself, Strange. Why am I so angry? What is that sour feeling in my heart? Su Ro did not understand and felt unfathomably strange. Although her chastity was taken away by Chu Feng just like that, and she was extremely angry. When Chu Feng said that he would marry both her and Su Mei, what was that sour feeling? Was it that she fell for Chu Feng But how was that possible? Chu Feng was her own sister's lover. How could she fall for him? The current Su Ro was tangled up, and for the first time, she discovered that she did not understand herself. At that moment, Chu Feng walked out as well. He wore his clothes, entirely new, because the clothing he wore last night was already ripped to shreds by him. Will this be kept secret or open to the public? Chu Feng spoke and asked, "What are you thinking about? How can this be publicized? If it is, how will little May look at you? How will little May look at me?" Su Ro was very nervous. "I'll listen to what you say right now since it will be made public sooner or later." Chu Feng seemed rather calm. "What is your meaning?" Su Ro's willow-like eyebrows slanted inwards, and she was nervous that Chu Feng would stir something up. "It's nothing. I'm just saying that you're mine, sooner or later." The corner of Chu Feng's mouth slightly raised, and he revealed an unruly, evil smile, as though everything that happened last night did not burden him at all. Rather, it was like he indulged in reminiscence. Su Ro viciously shot a glance at Chu Feng. Then she turned her head around and did not bother with Chu Feng anymore. With a strangely emphasized tone, she said to drive him away, "Quickly leave. Take advantage of the unlit sky, and don't let anyone know that you passed the night at my place." I was planning to leave anyway. Speak to little May and your father on behalf of me." As Chu Feng spoke, he prepared to walk down the stairs. "Wait." Su Ro's expression changed greatly as she questioned closely. "You said that you're leaving the Vermilion Bird City." "That's right," Chu Feng nodded. "How can you be like this? We did all this without understanding why. Yet you don't even bother to figure out what happened and leave just like that." Su Ro's gaze flickered, and her fury was increased because she felt that Chu Feng was too irresponsible. After all, what he took away last night was her body. "Figure out what happened. Last night, your servant from your residence invited me over. She said that there was something you needed me for, and said that you even specially prepared a pot of tea for me. After drinking that tea, I became how I was last night. Also, there was a fragrance in the bathroom. That fragrance was extremely strange, and it could restrain one's cultivation and make them completely powerless. Last night you didn't even have enough strength to hold a chicken, so I'm sure that it was caused by that fragrance. Who do you think, within your own Vermilion Bird City, is able to command your servant to betray you and also take out such strong drugs?" Chu Feng asked tranquilly. "You." At that instant, Su Ro was dumbfounded. She never would have thought that Chu Feng could analyze everything so quickly and determine who the person behind the scenes was. That calm, judgmental power and exceptional observation skills was really quite unbelievable. "Looking at your expression, it seems that you know who that person is as well. As for that person's goal, you and I mutually understand. I don't blame him, rather, I want to give him my gratitude. If he didn't do that, perhaps I would only marry his little daughter. But right now, I'll take both of his daughters." Chu Feng smiled and walked down the building. "For what reason do you say that? How do you know that I will marry you?" Su Ro interrogated. "I cannot be sure that you will marry me, but you are already mine. You better not like another person or else I'll kill him. No matter what, you cannot deny that from today on, you are mine. You and little May both are. You two sisters better not think of going anywhere." Chu Feng's attitude was resolute and directly overbearing. After saying those words, he didn't even look at what expression Su Ro had and quickly left. Su Ro stood there blankly without knowing what to do. Her, who was steadily maturing, got muddled up for the first time. Before Chu Feng left for long, Su Hen walked in. When he arrived on the 5th floor, he saw Su Ro. He had an apologetic face, but he did not say anything. He walked into the bathroom, and after seeing the bloodstain on the ground, he sighed. "Daughter, I am sorry for wronging you." Su Ro was also very calm as she asked, "Why did you need to do this?" Sigh. The strength of the Shangyuan family cannot be underestimated. If little May and Shangyuan Ya's marriage was forcefully cancelled, the Shangyuan family would certainly feel resentful. If he revolts against my Su family, even if we win, we will be greatly damaged, and this Vermilion Bird City will be in a crisis. Little May has fallen in love for that Chu Feng, and everyone can see that. If it was another person, I could forcefully cut off their relationship. However, that Chu Feng just so happens to be a genius, and when he grows up in the future, his power cannot be obstructed. My Su family cannot offend him, so I can only rope him in with us. So, you had be wronged. A relationship happened between you and him, so naturally he would feel guilt in his heart, and I believe he will not go for Little May anymore. From what I can see, Chu Feng does not seem to be a person who doesn't take responsibility. So in the future, even if he doesn't work for my Su family, he will certainly protect us. Not for anyone else, but just for you, he would do all that. Su Hen did not hide anything, and he explained everything in detail. After hearing Su Hen's words, Su Ro suddenly smiled. Her smile was abnormally strange, and Su Hen, who looked at it, had his hair stand up. My lord father, you are indeed correct. Chu Feng really is a responsible person, so you better not give Little May to that xianxia, or else not only will he exterminate the Shangyuan family, he will even exterminate my Su family and leave only me and Little May, the two of us, behind. What do you mean? Will Chu Feng still think about Little May after doing that to you? Exterminate my Su family. Chu Feng would dare to exterminate the family of his lover. Wouldn't he be afraid of the ridicule of the world? Su Hen's face changed greatly, and he was clearly slightly anxious because he could tell that Su Ro did not seem to be joking. My lord father, if you had to blame something, you can only blame your lack of understanding towards Chu Feng. He does not live for the world. He lives for himself and those who he cares about. Other people in his eyes can be useful, or they can be useless. It would be in vain to hold that against him. After speaking those words, Su Ro turned around and walked down. Although her expression was calm, her own father sold her out for his family. How could she not be furious? That fury could very possibly last an entire life. Seeing Su Ro, who left the palace and headed towards the outside of the Vermilion Bird City, Su Hen's had an extremely complex expression on his face. After a good while, he said in a low voice, "Could it be that I really made a mistake?" After leaving the Vermilion Bird City, Chu Feng set his goal at the White Tiger Villa. As for the reason, it was very simple. The Black Tortoise mountain range was occupied by the Black Tortoise City, and the Black Tortoise City was the territory of Gong Lion's family. If Chu Feng's identity was revealed, he would very likely die. So naturally, without absolute power, he could not rashly go there. Although the White Tiger mountain range was also occupied by the White Tiger Villa, the White Tiger Villa was not the only overlord of the White Tiger mountain range. According to what Chu Feng heard, other than the White Tiger Villa in the White Tiger mountain range, there were also many other villas. They all shared the resources of the White Tiger mountain range, so accordingly, it should be easier for Chu Feng to enter the White Tiger mountain range. Since the journey was long and he didn't really greet anyone while leaving the Vermilion Bird City, when Chu Feng left the city, he went to a station for horses and wanted to purchase a fast horse there. If he walked to his destination, even if Chu Feng had more abundant spiritual energy, he would completely exhaust it. Esteemed guest, our horses here are all good horses. Every single one can travel 1,000 miles every day. This Fergana horse is even quicker. It can easily travel 8,000 miles every day, and it's the king within horses. The attendant at the horse station pointed at a red-colored horse that was tall and big as he bragged. Travel 8,000 miles easily. Chu Feng had his doubts. That horse was blood-red colored, and it did seem more sturdy and healthy when compared to other horses. It was quite similar to the treasured horses of the Golden Purple City and the other cities. It was even slightly more excellent, and it was quite a good horse. However, within the horse's eyes, there was some unruliness. That proud attitude always faced Chu Feng with a hint of disdain. It would probably not easily let people ride it, and it was like a wild horse that was not trained. Esteemed guest, how can I be lying to you? This really is a good horse. It was tamed by the combined force of several cultivating experts. However, this horse still has its wild nature. If you aren't a cultivating expert, there really would be no way to ride it." The attendant quickly explained, "Oh, it really is a wild horse." After hearing his words, Chu Feng got even more interested in that horse, and it hooked onto Chu Feng's taming desires. So he said, "How much does this horse cost?" "I'll buy it." "This esteemed guest, are you sure that you want to buy this Fergana horse? It is not cheap." When he heard that Chu Feng wanted to buy it, that attendant was quite shocked. The reason why he introduced the horse to Chu Feng was to let him know that their horse station was quite concrete. However, he did not expect that Chu Feng would be able to buy it. After all, the price of the horse was not able to be bought by normal people, not to mention a young man like Chu Feng who wore plain clothing. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Chu Feng faintly smiled. To be honest, the normal horses in this horse station roughly costs a couple dozens taels of silver. The more excellent ones cost 1 tael of gold. As for this Fergana horse, it is a lot more expensive than the previous 2 types. The attendant stirred up some suspense. "How much?" Chu Feng was a bit impatient. If it was before, he might have worried about the cost. But the current him could really be said to be a real wealthy person. At least when compared to these ordinary citizens. He was an absolute rich person. 1 spiritual bead." The attendant extended 1 finger up, smiled, and said, "What? 1 spiritual bead is equivalent to 100 taels of gold. A horse like this costs that much money." When the attendant's words came out of his mouth, Chu Feng did not have any reactions. On the other hand, many of the surrounding crowd exclaimed in surprise, because something of interest came up. They all gathered around and seriously evaluated the Fergana horse. They wanted to see what was so special about it that made it cost so much. Chu Feng only smiled, while he looked at the curious gazes of the crowd. To him, 1 spiritual bead really was like a hair from 9 oxens, and it was not a problem in any way. 1 spiritual bead is worth it for such a precious horse. However, not waiting for Chu Feng to speak, a rough voice suddenly rang out. Looking over, a group of big persons were slowly walking over. The one who led them had net-like sideburns. He revealed well-built muscles from his body, and there was even a frightening scar on those muscles. The words that were said just now was from him. After seeing those people, everyone quickly rushed to the side because, just from their appearances, they could see that they should be martial cultivators, and they were certainly not kind people. They were unoffendable existences. "I will take this Fergana horse." The big person who had net-like sideburns took out a golden, shiny spiritual bead from his pocket and unhesitantly threw it to the attendant. After accepting it, the attendant was all smiles from unexpected happiness. No matter what, he never would have expected that the Fergana horse really sold for such a heavenly high price. However, at that moment Chu Feng spoke. "Wait, the so-called first come first serve. I didn't even say that I wouldn't buy it, so how can you sell it to other people? Little bro, I can see that you are a cultivator as well, but you also know that this Fergana horse is worth 1 spiritual bead. 1 spiritual bead. Think about it more carefully. Are you able to pay for it?" The big person smiled while examining Chu Feng. Disdain could be seen from his gaze, and the group of big persons behind him roared with laughter. They felt that Chu Feng really overestimated himself if he was trying to fight over the horse with their boss. Even many observing citizens started to point at Chu Feng and felt that Chu Feng had eyes but could not recognize Mount Tai, as he should not offend a group of people like them. Chu Feng ignored the gazes of the crowd. He slowly raised his hand and extended it towards the Cosmos sack on his waist. Heavens! Is that the legendary Cosmos sack? Suddenly, someone couldn't help but cry out, "What? Cosmos sack?" At that instant, the surrounding people all cast their gazes towards the Cosmos sack on Chu Feng's waist. After all, the Cosmos sack was an extremely precious thing. Only people who were rich to a certain realm could use them, and only those from real rich families were able to own them. Was the young man in front of them a person from a rich family? However, why would a person from a rich family come here to buy horses? HMPH, that's no Cosmos sack. It is just some imitation that looks like one. Real cosmos sacks do not look like that." The man with sideburns sneered and said, "So it's an imitation. I even thought it was a real one." Sigh. The young people these days really love admiration too much. In order for the higher opinions of others, they use imitations. How shameless. After hearing the words of that big person, the crowd all sighed and their gazes towards Chu Feng were no longer curious. Instead, they were filled with contempt. Chu Feng paid no attention to their words. In the instant that he touched the cosmos sack, a strange light radiated out, and two golden and sparkling spiritual beads appeared on Chu Feng's palm. Chu Feng threw the spiritual beads to the attendant of the shop and said, "One spiritual bead to buy this Fergana horse. The other one is for you as appreciation." Chu Feng's actions tied up the surrounding people's tongues, and they were dumbfounded. They were so shocked that their jaws fell to the ground, especially that big person with sideburns. His face was ashen and it was as ugly as it could get. Spiritual beads, how precious were they? For that Fergana horse. He looked everywhere, and he only got one after extreme difficulties in order to buy that horse. Who would have thought that such an ordinary-looking young man would take two out as he wished? One of them was even for the attendant. It really made him want to vomit blood out because he knew that the Fergana horse, in which he admired for a long time, was fated to belong to another person. Compared to the big person's blood vomiting, the others were admiring and envying. Admiration towards the fallen riches from the sky that the attendant got. One spiritual bead was equivalent to 100 taels of gold, and it was given to the attendant just like that. It was enough for him to richly live his life with no worries. At that instant, all of the gazes towards Chu Feng changed. No one dared to have even a single strand of scorn. Rather, they were incomparably deferential. Some people even started to smile while facing Chu Feng, and hoped that Chu Feng would reward them with something from a burst of happiness. "Young master, this Fergana horse belongs to you. I will go right now to prepare some good wine and dishes for you." That attendant was so pleased that flowers blossomed on his face, and his huge smile was even going to reach behind his ears, and he could not even stop smiling. "Prepare a top-class room for me as well." Chu Feng lightly smiled and waved his hand. "No problem. The best room will certainly be prepared and provided for your resting." The attendant first returned the spiritual bead back to the big person, then carefully put the two spiritual beads away, and finally he joyfully went to prepare a room for Chu Feng. Chu Feng smiled while sweeping a glance at that big person with sideburns and said, "Does my cosmos sack look like a fake one anymore? HMPH. So what if you have money? This Fergana horse cannot be tamed without a certain cultivation. You better be careful or else you won't even be able to leave." The big person coldly snorted and said, "No need to worry about that." Chu Feng smiled and went towards the direction of the rooms. The funniest thing was that the ordinary citizens rushed and surrounded Chu Feng, wanting to lead the way for him. "Boss, this Fergana horse is given to him just like that." As they looked at the departing back of Chu Feng, the group of big persons all gathered around. "Give it to him." The big person with sideburns put the returned spiritual bead back to his pocket and quietly said, "Ask around and find out where this little child is going. How can we miss such a huge, fat sheep?" Chu Feng arrived at the area with the guest rooms, and the attendant already prepared a top-class room for him. Very quickly, he brought good wine and food over for Chu Feng. His attitude was enthusiastic and his service was thorough. After the lesson of the fragrant tea, Chu Feng became more cautious. He first used his spirit power to scan over it, and after confirming that the wine and dishes were without problem, he started to fill himself with food. After eating, Chu Feng did not hurry to leave the horse station. He laid a spirit formation in the room first, and started to refine the spiritual and origin beads in his cosmos sack. After all, he did not know whether he was going to have good or bad luck on his journey, so it was better to raise his own cultivation first. Chu Feng started with the spiritual beads. Following his growth in strength, his spiritual bead refinement speed got even more terrifying. Several thousand spiritual beads were finished after a short while, and they were all consumed by the divine lightning within his dantian. However, after refining the several thousand spiritual beads, despite having great changes in his dantian, there was no feeling of breakthrough. Heavens, your appetite is getting bigger and bigger. Who can even continue raising you up like this? Chu Feng was very speechless. Suddenly, he cherished the times when he could break through with just a few Saint Spirit grasses. Looking at it now, he could not even break through a single level with several thousand spiritual beads. If he arrived at the origin realm, profound realm, or even the heaven realm, Chu Feng did not dare to imagine how much wealth he would need to exhaust in order to make himself grow. His future was his present, and he was facing a huge and difficult problem. Don't complain about this. There's a knack for your divine lightning in your body. If I'm not mistaken, you should also have a divine body that is bestowed by heaven. Just at that time, Egge's light and pleasant voice rang out. Divine body bestowed by heaven, what's that? Chu Feng was greatly shocked. It is a special type of body. When that body is born, it is be accompanied by unusual displays in the world. Those unusual displays usually represent the special abilities grasped by a person who has a divine body as well as the strengths and weaknesses of the abilities. If I'm correct in my estimations, King xianxia, who created the emperor tombs, should be a person with a divine body. His achievements that year and his special physique has an inseparable relationship with it. Egge explained, that means the divine lightning in my dantian was originally one with me. Chu Feng rejoiced because he always felt that the divine lightning in his body was an organism that forcefully entered his body. Chu Feng was always muddled by its objective. However, after hearing Egge's words, he felt a lot relieved because most likely, the godly lighting was originally one with him. It entered his body only to make him become stronger, and it would absolutely not harm him. Don't celebrate too early. A divine body is brought innately, and the unusual displays also appears when one is born. The special abilities are also revealed after martial cultivation. However, although there was indeed an unusual display on that year, only after you grew up did the divine lightning enter your body. Cultivating up until now, other than being quicker in cultivation than others, and having a lot higher spiritual energy quality than others, no special abilities were discovered. So, I cannot be sure that you have a divine body. However, I can be sure that the divine lightning in your body is a good thing, and it will make you stronger. As long as you find the resources in the emperor tombs, perhaps you can even exceed a person like King xianxia. Egge reminded, I don't care whether I have a divine body or not, but as long as there are enough resources, I can certainly rapidly become stronger. Chu Feng's confidence instantly multiplied as he started to refine the origin beads. One origin bead entered his belly. It did not disperse into spiritual energy, but origin power. It had to be said that there was an extremely huge difference in quality between origin power and spiritual energy. However, within Chu Feng's body, the origin power converted into huge amounts of spiritual energy. To the current Chu Feng, even if he took in 100 spiritual beads, there wouldn't be too big of a reaction in his dantian. However, when that single origin bead entered his belly, he clearly felt change in his dantian. That also showed the impressiveness of origin beads. These origin beads really are good things. Chu Feng was very pleased, and he just swallowed the origin beads he had all at once. After consuming them, they instantly changed into the boundless spiritual energy. But that strong spiritual energy could not even wreak havoc in his body before being consumed by the divine lightning in Chu Feng's dantian in one bite. It was so straightforward as well, as if it was not even worth mentioning such strong spiritual energy in front of it. It was like it was not even enough to fill the cracks within its teeth. However, the most exciting thing to Chu Feng was when the boundless spiritual energy got consumed all at once by the divine lightning. Chu Feng's aura quickly started to rise. Change happened in terms of quality, and he already entered to the peak of the spirit realm, the 9th level of the spirit realm. The thing that thrilled Chu Feng was that not only did the strengthening feeling not slow down, it kept on increasing. Is it possible that I can break through into the origin realm all at once? Chu Feng was endlessly excited. Unprecedented change was currently happening to his Danshan. 9 lightning beasts, 9 colors, 9 shapes. They were constantly changing and constantly roaring. Every single roar could shake the world, but at that instant, only Chu Feng and Eggy could hear it. Suddenly, a golden lightning beast left the group. Bringing its dazzling golden lightning, it abruptly dashed out of the Danshan and bore headfirst into Chu Feng's heart. At that instant, Chu Feng could clearly hear his own heart violently jump 2 times. Also, an unfathomable feeling spiraled around his mind. The golden lightning beast split apart in Chu Feng's heart. It turned into countless tiny little golden streams of lightning that were like little golden snakes. They went along Chu Feng's veins and roamed within them. Very quickly, they occupied the blood in Chu Feng's entire body. An indescribably strong feeling spread out from Chu Feng's blood. Just then, Chu Feng's blood was no longer a normal person's blood. It was blood that was filled with golden lightning. At that instant, the 8 lightning beasts in Chu Feng's Danshan all stopped surging and roaring. They gathered into a lump again and settled down. At the same time, spiritual energy was no longer emitting from his Danshan. Origin power started to cleanse every single part of his body. A breakthrough. Chu Feng finally had a breakthrough as he broke the bindings of the spirit realm and entered the long-awaited origin realm. As he felt the strong origin power in his body, Chu Feng was abnormally joyful. Although Chu Feng already felt the feeling of being in the origin realm, under the assistance of Eggy, it was completely different this time. Not only was it Chu Feng's own power, the most important thing was that there were golden lightning added in his blood. The golden lightning linked up with the origin power and caused harmonization with Chu Feng, for the purpose of being used by him. If bodies of God had special abilities, the current Chu Feng was as though he grasped the special ability that should have belonged to him. Suddenly, Chu Feng explosively yelled. Within his eyes, 2 golden lightning emerged out. The golden lightning surged within his eyes, and his entire atmosphere seemed completely different. At the same time, the golden lightning wandering around in his bloodstream started to surge and roar. With Chu Feng as the center, the origin power around Chu Feng formed into a human-shaped shield. Chu Feng's cultivation entered the 2nd level of the origin realm from the 1st. This is your ability. Impressive. It can directly raise your cultivation by 1 level, and it was after the lightning merged with your body. If all 9 lightning blend into your body and be able to be used by you, how strong would you be? Good guy, this divine lightning really isn't simple. If you get the power of 1 lightning every time you break through a big realm, your future accomplishments really would be overwhelming. Eggy excitedly cheered and happily shouted out. Even she felt admiration towards Chu Feng's special power that he got. After all, the reason why Chu Feng could directly raise a level in cultivation was because of the lightning that merged with his body. If the 8 lightning beasts in his Danshan were all able to be used by Chu Feng, it was simply unimaginable what kind of power he would gain. After all, currently, it was only the power of the golden lightning. It was unknown what mysterious effects the other 8 would have. However, the thing that could be confirmed was that the 9 lightning beasts would bring terrifying power for Chu Feng. It's really strong, and this feeling is very good as well. I don't need to fear anyone at the 5th level of the origin realm. Even if they are at the 6th level of the origin realm, I can still fight them. As for those at the 7th level of the origin realm, even if I cannot win, they would have quite some difficulty in harming me. As long as I am willing to, no one can stop my steps within the origin realm. Chu Feng was also madly happy because compared to Eggy who lived in his spirit world, Chu Feng could feel the changes to himself, the brutal origin power surging from his dantian, and the tyrannical lightning in his blood made Chu Feng extremely confident. He felt that he could easily kill those at the 5th level of the origin realm. As long as he gave it his all, those at the 6th level of the origin realm could not beat him, even if he could not face those at the 7th level of the origin realm. With the superb rank 7 bodily martial skill, the Imperial Sky technique, as long as Chu Feng wished to escape, no one could stop him within the origin realm. It seems that your arranged battle with that Gong Lion really isn't too big of a problem. He is at the 1st level of the profound realm right now, but even if he had better talent, he is still a normal person, and at the time of the arranged battle, his cultivation would not exceed the 2nd level of the profound realm. Although you just entered the origin realm, you have a divine body. You are crowned with the title of a real genius, with the body that grasps special abilities. With the methods you currently have, you don't even need to step into the profound realm. As long as you reach the 9th level of the origin realm at the date of the arranged battle, you can easily defeat Gong Lion. With this, you only need to raise your cultivation by 7 more levels to win against Gong Lion. Although it's extremely hard to do that within the time of 1 year, don't forget you have me overseeing everything. As long as you can absorb enough source energy for me before the arranged battle and let my cultivation reach the 9th level of the origin realm, naturally, I can guarantee your victory. Eggy giggled and said, "At the end, you still want me to find source energy for you. I want to rely on my own strength in the battle against Gong Lion, so unless I am forced to with no other choice, I want use your power." Naturally, Chu Feng knew that continuously breaking through 7 levels of cultivation straight to the 9th level of the origin realm in less than 1 year was quite difficult, because he required large amounts of origin beads as resources. Compared to large amounts of origin beads, the source energy from the remains of profound realm experts really were quite a bit better. After all, within the Azure province, there were many profound realm experts. As long as Chu Feng firmly grasped the spirit formation technique, source energy was not as hard to find as imagined. However, Chu Feng still wanted to rely on his own power to defeat Gong Lion, because he wanted to depend on himself to defeat and kill the person that humiliated him before. After the breakthrough in cultivation, Chu Feng left the horse station and chose to continue his journey. Although Chu Feng would not feel any burden while using the power of the golden lightning, he would still seem different than the others with his eyes which were sparkling with golden lightning, and also from the shield formed by origin power. So when it was peaceful, Chu Feng would obviously not use that special method. Also, for better infiltration into the White Tiger mountain range, Eggy even gave Chu Feng a technique that hid his realm cultivation through the spirit formation power. That technique was quite something, and it really could hide his true aura. Unless it was an extremely strong world spiritist, even a cultivating expert of the profound realm could not see through Chu Feng's cultivation. Chu Feng rode the Fergana horse and galloped with flying speed. Very quickly, he left the influential range of the Vermilion Bird City. However, just at that time, in front of the broad road, there was a group of familiar faces. It was the big person that fought over his Fergana horse. "Hee, damn brat, we've waited a long time for you." Seeing the group of big persons that swarmed over and surrounded him, Chu Feng couldn't help but be at a loss. He could tell what the group of people wanted to do, but he could not tell how did they know he was going to go on this specific road. Damn it, that wretched attendant. Suddenly, Chu Feng thought of something and he cursed in his heart. Before, the shop attendant asked Chu Feng where he was heading towards. It was so that he could give Chu Feng some pointers to some shortcuts, for the goal of reaching the White Tiger mountain range quicker. So Chu Feng told him, but he never would have thought that the attendant sold him out and informed the group of big persons what his route was. "Hee, boy, you've got quite the nerve to dare to steal our boss' treasured horse." As they held big blades while rubbing them against their pants, they quickly walked towards Chu Feng. Looking at their aggressiveness, It seemed that they did not plan to leave him alive. Chu Feng did not put the group of people in his eyes, other than the big person with sideburns who was a cultivator at the 9th level of the spirit realm. All the others were weak and not worth anything. They were simply looking to die if they wanted to rob and kill Chu Feng. This aura. But just at that time, Chu Feng tightly frowned and he couldn't help but cast his gaze behind. He saw dust flying up, and he could vaguely see dozens of quick horses that were rushing towards them. The horses were good horses, and almost every single one were not worse than the Fergana horse that he was riding on. They were even extremely well taken care of. The people on the horses were not ordinary as well. Not only did they have fitting clothing, their cultivation were not bad as well. The weakest was still at the 4th level of the origin realm. Chu Feng could even faintly feel the aura of a profound realm expert within the group of people. Although it was only the 1st level of the profound realm, it was still, without a doubt, the profound realm. The appearance of the group of people, also attracted the attention of the big persons. They quickly hid their blades behind them, stood on the side of the road, and acted as if they were peaceful. It was because they were afraid that the people and horses who were arriving came from the Vermilion Bird City. If they were discovered by the people from the Vermilion Bird City that they were currently robbing a young man, they would most likely die. Chu Feng also stood where he was and silently looked at the group of people. He wanted to wait until they passed by before taking care of the big person who did not have eyes. However, the unexpected thing was that as the group of people and horses neared, they surrounded Chu Feng and the big persons. A handsome and beautiful male who was riding a white-colored fine horse coldly looked towards Chu Feng and said, "Boy, you're quite clever, huh? You chose to leave the Vermilion Bird City during the night. However, did you think you could escape just from that? Who are you? I don't recall having any history with you." Chu Feng carefully examined the handsome male, and he found out that his cultivation was not weak, being at the 8th level of the origin realm. But compared to that person, Chu Feng was more fearful towards the cold-faced middle-aged man behind him, because that man was the person at the profound realm that Chu Feng felt before, an expert of the 1st level of the profound realm. "Ho, you don't recognize me. I'll introduce myself. I am xianxia, Su Mei's fiancé. Do you understand now?" Xianxia sneered and said while his gaze was filled with chilly killing intent, "Fiancé? When did Su Mei have a fiancé like you? I never heard her mention that before. You didn't grant that title to yourself, right?" Chu Feng's eyes narrowed and a cold gaze surged out. Although he already felt that they might not have come for kind reasons, when he heard Xianxia say that he was the fiancé of Su Mei, Chu Feng instantly got angry. It was because Chu Feng already had good feelings towards Su Mei, and Su Mei also hiddenly loved Chu Feng. The two of them just didn't poke through the layer of window paper. However, in Chu Feng's heart, Su Mei was already his, so how could he bear letting others call themselves as Su Mei's fiancé? HMPH. The marriage between me and Su Mei has been set for many years. This is something that everyone in the Vermilion Bird City knows, Xianxia loudly said, and he was very smug. It could be seen that he really liked Su Mei. "Brother, there is no need to waste words on a person who is going to die. Just directly kill him and it would be fine." Just at that time, the male behind Xianxia spoke. The cold-faced male was called Xiangyuan Tian, and he was Xianxuan's elder brother. When he was 30 years old, he entered the profound realm. Although his potential was lower than Xianxia, his cultivating talent was not bad, and he was still quite the character in the Xiangyuan family. "Brother, you are correct. While facing people who are going to die, I really shouldn't waste any words." Xianxia smiled and replied. Although he was the secretly determined future family master in the Xiangyuan family, he was still very respectful towards his elder brother. Attack. Xiangyuan Tian coldly spoke. He did not personally attack, because he felt that a person like Chu Feng was not qualified for him to personally attack. In the instant that he finished speaking, dozens of Xiangyuan family experts attacked simultaneously. Even the group of big persons suffered. With a blink, several fell on the ground dead, "My lords, don't kill us. We don't know who this boy is." The big person with sideburns was terrified. He never would have thought that Chu Feng had such a group of enemies. They were people that truly killed without blinking. Also, from their strength and cultivation, it was clear that they had quite an important status. If they knew about that, how would they have even dared to rob Chu Feng? Not only were they not successful, they even lost their little lives. However, how could the people from the Xianxia family let them go? An expert waved his hand and directly shattered the big person's brain, and he died quite wretchedly. After killing the group of big persons, the Xianxia family crowd all swarmed and surrounded Chu Feng. The atmosphere they were giving off showed that they were planning to take Chu Feng's life. "HMPH, want to kill me? I'm afraid all of you aren't capable." Seeing that the situation was not good, Chu Feng fiercely kicked the Fergana horse under him, and the horse suddenly jumped and galloped towards the two people who were blocking Chu Feng in front of him. "Where do you think you're going?" The two of them attacked at the same time. They did not use any martial skills, but the most direct attacks. They threw a punch out, and the origin power ripples were like invisible boulders. With lightning speed and unconcealed might, they were smashing towards Chu Feng. HMPH. Chu Feng only coldly snorted when facing their attacks. Golden lightning flashed into his eyes, and a layer of origin power shield encircled him. His cultivation instantly rose to the second level of the origin realm, and he waved his big sleeve, dispelling the two origin power fists. At the same time, Chu Feng clenched both his hands and two golden, long flickering rows condensed out. Chu Feng's arms moved, and the two rays of golden light cut through the air. The two experts at the fifth level of the origin realm had their bodies and heads in separate locations. Asterisk whoosh asterisk. After decapitating the two people, Chu Feng broke through the surrounding trap of the Xianxia family. While driving the Fergana horse, he rushed straight out. How is that possible? He's at the second level of the origin realm. At that instant, all of the people from the Xianxia family were dumbstruck and greatly shocked. They never would have guessed that Chu Feng had the cultivation of the second level of the origin realm. However, the hardest thing to imagine was that Chu Feng could kill two experts of the fifth level of the origin realm with one strike, and escape right in front of their faces. Want to escape? It won't be that easy. Xiangyuan Tian and Xiangyuan coldly snorted as they chased after him on their horses. A large portion of the crowd behind them closely chased after, however. Two people were left behind to take care of the Xiangyuan family's dead. Their methods were extremely experienced, and they did not even leave a single trace behind. On their attack on Chu Feng, it could be seen that they were afraid of the Su family knowing about it. Damn it. Luckily I bought a good horse, or else I really would have died here. The Fergana horse under Chu Feng ran as if it flew. Its speed really was quite something, and it was not too much slower than Chu Feng's Imperial Sky technique. However, the thing that made Chu Feng speechless was that the white-colored horses that the Xiangyuan family were riding on were no worse than his Fergana horse. It even surpassed it, and they were pulling the distance closer, bit by bit. Damn, it won't do if this continues. Chu Feng panicked a bit. He just left the Vermilion Bird mountain range, and plains were as far as his eye could see. He could only go along the road to escape, but if that continued very quickly, he would be caught up. Chu Feng was not afraid of the others, however. When facing that Xiangyuan Tian more or less, Chu Feng had some fear. Although he was only at the first level of the profound realm, after all, it was the profound realm. If he got near to him, Chu Feng really did not know whether he could escape or not. Idiot, why aren't you infusing origin power to the horse? Won't you get caught if this continues? Just at that time, Eggy anxiously yelled out, infusing origin power to this Fergana horse. Chu Feng was quite shocked. It was the first time that he heard such a trick. You idiot. Normal people can't, but you can. Don't forget, you're a world spiritist. Eggy had a look of hating iron for not being steel, as she gave Chu Feng a type of spirit formation power that reduced the origin power. With that, the two of them could harmonize together, and it was a method to increase the physical capabilities of the Fergana horse. When Chu Feng infused the origin power, the Fergana horse neighed and both of its eyes became blood red. It was like it went insane. 4 of its hooves moved at the same time, and it was as if it already left the ground. That speed was called fast, and with a wisp of smoke, the Shangyuan crowd were left behind after great difficulty in nearing Chu Feng. Damn, what horse is that guy riding? How is it so fast? That's impossible. It was clearly only a normal Fergana horse. How can it be faster than my Shangyuan family's meticulously trained little white dragons? Looking at Chu Feng, who got rid of them with an absolute advantage, the people from the Shangyuan family were all dumbfounded because his horse was the quickest horse than they had ever seen, and it was so fast that it surpassed their imagination. HMPH, quite some methods, but it's too immature. Shangyuan Tian narrowed his eyes, his body leaped, and he jumped off from his white horse. After that he strided with long steps. Wild wind danced, and his speed was a lot quicker than the horse as he chased Chu Feng. Okay, no need to chase anymore. With Big Bro, Chu Feng will die without a doubt. Seeing that, Shangyuan waved his hands towards the people behind him and indicated them to stop. In the current situation, it would be impossible for them to rely on the horses they were riding on to chase Chu Feng. They had the heart but not the power. However, Shangyuan Tian was different. What he cultivated was a middle-level mysterious technique, and he also grasped a very abstruse bodily martial skill. Combining the robust profound power and the excellent martial skill, it was only the issue of time before he caught up to Chu Feng, because even if they were completing in terms of stamina, Shangyuan Tian would not lose to the Fergana horse. That was the scariness of the profound realm. Damn it, how is this guy's body so good? Can the profound power in his body not be used up? The two of them kept on insanely running. Chu Feng rode the horse, Shangyuan Tian ran with his feet. They ran from day straight, until night, and they had ran for over 10,000 miles. However, the thing that Chu Feng was helpless against was that Shangyuan Tian could not be left behind as he was chasing, and there was not a single trace of fatigue on his face. Nonsense! That's an expert of the profound realm, and it is not comparable to the origin realm. Do you really think the distance between profound power and origin power was like a star or half a dot? Luckily, the person you met was only at the first level of the profound realm. If he was at the second level of the profound realm, he would have already caught up with you. Eggy explained, "What should I do? This Fergana horse is being overworked, and he won't be able to continue soon." Chu Feng had spirit power, so he could feel the state of the Fergana horse. Although Chu Feng's origin power greatly raised the physical abilities of the Fergana horse, its body was unable to endure such high pressure, and it had reached its limit. It seems that you can only abandon the horse to escape. Go to that mountain. It would be difficult for him to catch you in the forest, Eggy reminded. At that moment, Chu Feng also noticed a mountain range that was nearby. So, Chu Feng urged the horse towards it. However, just as he arrived at the foot of the mountain, the Fergana horse was completely exhausted and it started to decelerate. Horsey, sorry. Chu Feng stroked the Fergana horse that ran for over 10,000 miles while being unwilling to part with it. After that, he leaped, did a beautiful flip in the air, and landed on the ground from the horse's back. After his feet touched the ground, lightning snakes surged, as he used the middle stage of the Imperial Sky technique. However, before even walking 2 steps, the wretched cry of a horse came from behind. Turning his head to look, Chu Feng discovered that the Fergana horse was split into half by Shangyuan Tian, and blood was scattered on the ground. Damned Shangyuan family! If I, Chu Feng, can escape this calamity, I will annihilate your entire family. Chu Feng was furious. It was the first time that he was forced into a situation like that, as Shangyuan Tian wanted to kill him with no room for discussion. It was also Shangyuan Tian's bloodlust that initiated Chu Feng's flames of anger. He already put the Shangyuan family into his elimination list. As long as he could escape that disaster and grow up in the future, he would certainly go and slaughter the Shangyuan family without even leaving a single chicken or dog alive. Asterisk whoosh 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 asterisk. Chu Feng rushed into the mountain range, and he looked with his spirit power, relying on the speed of the imperial sky technique. Chu Feng ran west and east in the forest, but even so, he had no way of getting rid of Shangyuan Tian. For the first time, he understood the powerful strength of Profound Realm experts. Between the Origin and Profound Realm, there was indeed a gap that was unable to be passed over. Even if it was Chu Feng who had a divine body, even if he had spirit power, he could not fight against a Profound Realm expert with insufficient cultivation, despite Shangyuan Tian only being at the first level of the Profound Realm. Boy, you can't escape. Suddenly, the bellow of Shangyuan Tian came behind Chu Feng. At the same time, his expression changed greatly because he suddenly found out to his left, and to his right, two auras appeared. Those auras were both at the first level of the Profound Realm. At that instant, from behind as well, Chu Feng was surrounded. The auras that abruptly appeared greatly changed Chu Feng's expression, because he discovered that the aura belonged to Shangyuan Tian. However, clearly, Shangyuan Tian was still closely chasing behind him. How did he surround him from both left and right? It's a martial skill. After looking to his sides, Chu Feng couldn't help but be astounded. He shockingly discovered that the aura really seemed like Shangyuan Tian's, but they were not actual bodies. They seemed to be translucent, illusionary bodies. They were similar to consciousnesses, yet they were clearly not. HMPH. This is a rank 6 martial skill, illusionary body. I would not usually use it, but today, I will let you open your eyes. As he spoke, Shangyuan Tian's profound power on his body moved around, and two more illusions came out from his body. They separated and almost blocked Chu Feng's retreating path, making it so Chu Feng could only continue forward, and without being able to change directions. Damn it, why is there such a twisted martial skill in the world? Chu Feng was extremely speechless. That martial skill was simply too revolting. The auras were same as the original body, which meant that they grasped the same amount of power. If that skill was used while fighting an enemy of the same strength, he could create a state in which he completely crushes the enemy. HMPH. Being startled for such an insignificant thing. It is merely a rank 6 martial skill, and since the road of martial cultivation is broad and profound, there are countless more strange and odd things. His martial skill just looks a bit more spectacular. If he meets someone with absolute strength, it would be useless even if he had more people. However, it is quite efficient for him to use this martial skill to catch you. Eggy said, "Rubbish. If I keep on being pressured by him like this, sooner or later, I will reach an impasse. Can't you think of any way that would let me get rid of him?" Chu Feng was quite anxious. He did not want to be killed in the wilderness, while he did not know all the reasons why. In these kinds of situations, you can only leave it up to fate. If there's a tall mountain that blocks the road, you climb it. If there's a cliff in which you cannot see the bottom, you jump. As long as you can escape his pursuit, you will have a strand of chance to live. If you get caught by him, without a doubt, you will die. Eggy said, "Damn it." It was just like how Eggy said it was. Chu Feng had no other methods. He could only leave it to the heavens and rely on luck, who told him to have worse skill than others. Even if he was forced to death, he would not have any words of complaint. As he madly ran, Chu Feng climbed higher and higher. In front of him, there really was a steep cliff as an obstruction, but luckily, it wasn't too steep, and with Chu Feng's methods, he could climb on it. Within the boundless mountain range, after running away for 6 hours, Chu Feng suddenly felt that something was wrong. There was a dead end in front of him, as there was an extremely tall cliff. Does the heavens really want Chu Feng to perish? Standing on the peak of the cliff, Chu Feng looked down. He found out that the cliff really was the end. It was steep to the extreme, and if Chu Feng jumped down like that, he would not have much luck. Don't be afraid, Chu Feng. Listen carefully. There are water sounds, so there is a river current down there. Even if this place gets higher, you will only be badly injured, but you shouldn't die. Eggy calmly interpreted, "Run." Let me see where you're going to run. This is called the suicide cliff. The rocks are special, and even those at the profound realm cannot grab onto the cliff wall. At the bottom of the suicide cliff, it's the Dragon River. The Dragon River's water rushes extremely quickly, and it is incomparably vicious. Just like a sharp knife, living things would be shattered into pieces by the water sprays. And there are even monstrous beasts in the Dragon River. Even if the water does not slam you to death, or if the whirlpools don't roll you to death, the monstrous beasts will swallow you. Xianxia walked over. He no longer chased, and his steps slowed down. He had a smug expression all over his face, and his gaze towards Chu Feng was filled with mock. So from the start, he was already planning to force Chu Feng to this dead end. Jump. If you jump at most, your body would be shattered and your bones crushed. But if you die from my hands, you will disappear like a strand of smoke. As Xianxia neared, he sneered. At that instant, Chu Feng suddenly smiled. His smile was very eerie as he spoke. Xianxia, pray that I will die just like this. Pray that you won't see me again. Or else I, Chu Feng, will find you. When that day arrives, it will not only be your end, it will be the extermination of your Xianxia family. After saying that, Chu Feng suddenly leaped and elegantly jumped down the cliff. Very quickly, he sank into the fog as it concealed any trace of him. Seeing that, Xianxia immediately rushed to where Chu Feng was standing before. He focused and looked carefully. For some reason, a hint of worry was created in his heart. He suddenly regretted it. He regretted not killing Chu Feng personally and instead forcing him down the cliff. It had to be said that the cliff was extremely high. After jumping, quite a while passed before he passed through the fog and saw the bottom. At the bottom, it was exactly as Xianxia described as. There was a wide and fierce river. That river was extremely bizarre. The spray of water were very brutal, and there were countless underflows. Even in an instant, he could see several whirlpools swirling within the water currents. At that moment, Chu Feng quickly revolved the origin power through his body to protect himself. The drop from the cliff really was too high, and even if he dropped into the river, a huge force would still be brought on impact. If it were others, they would directly become meat sauce. However, even Chu Feng did not have much luck. Asterisk bang asterisk powerful water sprayed everywhere as Chu Feng sank into the Dragon River. In the instant that he sank in, Chu Feng completely lost consciousness as he was swept away by the violent currents. Chu Feng drifted along the water flow, and his consciousness was in a mess. He was really heavily injured, and despite of Egge's yells, Chu Feng could not concentrate his awareness. Life and death really was on a thread. Roughly 5 days passed under that situation, and Chu Feng's consciousness finally started to gradually recover. When he felt the piercing pain coming from his body, he vaguely heard a sweet and beautiful voice of a young female. "Oi, are you all right? Wake up." As he was in a daze, Chu Feng slowly opened his eyes. Only then did he discover that he was lying on grass. Near him was the fierce Dragon River. It was like a vicious, wild beast, and it was still surging and roaring. Saved, not dead. That were Chu Feng's subconscious thoughts, because everything that he saw, and also including the pain coming from his body, let Chu Feng acknowledge that he was still alive. "Oi, I'm talking to you. Why aren't you replying?" Just at that time, the sweet and beautiful voice rang out again. Turning his head to look, Chu Feng found out that there was a young female standing behind him. She was around 15 years old, with a tall stature, delicate facial features, pretty appearance, and her pair of clear, big eyes were staring at him while blinking. Behind the young female stood a big person and an old man. In contrast to her curiosity, they were filled with alert. "Miss, it seems that he is fine. Let's quickly leave as we must reach the White Tiger Villa before the sky gets dark." The old man spoke and urged. The young female meaningfully shot Chu Feng a glance before turning around and leaving. "Wait, all of you are heading towards to the White Tiger Villa." Chu Feng quickly spoke. "Wait, all of you are heading towards to the..." Chu Feng quickly spoke. He hiddenly thought, did the Dragon River lead straight to the White Tiger mountain range? And without him knowing, he already reached his destination. Wasn't the White Tiger Villa the most famous villa in the White Tiger mountain range? It was the villa he wanted to sneak into. After all, the name meant that the villa was most likely similar to the Vermilion Bird City, Black Tortoise City, and the Azure Dragon School. The most likely grasped a certain kind and degree of secret in the White Tiger mountain range. You want to head towards the as well. The young female revealed an unconvincing expression. That's right. I wonder if you could bring me along. Chu Feng revealed a non-evil smile. He found out, other than the three people, there was a stopped carriage nearby. That carriage had no one inside, so it was obviously theirs. Although Chu Feng's speed on foot was not slow, at that instant he was sore all over, and it was as though his body framework was going to break up. The origin power in his body were extremely sparse, so naturally he wanted to take the free ride. Since we're going to the same place, come with us. The young female thought for a bit, then she nodded and agreed. Miss this? However, seeing that, the old man and the big person tensed up. It doesn't matter. The carriage has extra spots anyway, right? Look at him. If he walked to the, who knows how long he would need to take. The young female lightly smiled, and she seemed quite kind. Seeing her determined like so, the old man and the big person looked at each other, then said nothing as they could only silently approve. Thanks a lot. Chu Feng did not restrain himself as he rose and walked towards the direction of the carriage. He knew that the group of people were certainly more familiar in this area than him, so it was absolutely correct to follow them. Miss Wang, what are all of you going to the for? On the carriage, Chu Feng curiously asked. After some information, he knew that the young female was called Wang Lin, and her home was located at a small town within the range of the White Tiger mountain range. Also, Chu Feng could feel that she was a martial cultivator. Although her cultivation was very weak, being only at the second level of the spirit realm, she did cultivate. It's fine if you call me Wang Lin. She sweetly smiled, then said proudly, of course it's to join the servant exam. Servant exam? Chu Feng revealed a questioning expression. You don't know, it's the servant exam. Every month they accept servants from the outside, those under 17 years old and has the cultivation of the second level of the spirit realm can join. Wang Lin started to narrate to Chu Feng. From that, Chu Feng also knew that the White Tiger mountain range was rather desolate, and there were very few schools nearby. So, in order to let common people cultivate, the passed-out martial cultivation methods, those who were under 17 years old and raised their cultivation to the second level of the spirit realm could enter the. They would use their status as servants to cultivate martial skills or even mysterious techniques. And Wang Lin wanted to improve and get promoted to a cultivator. So that means you're a martial cultivator. Chu Feng chuckled and said. He decided to pretend to be a beginner in martial cultivation to join the servant exam. With that, he would sneak into the HMPH. My family's miss already reached the second level of the spirit realm half a year ago. How would a bumpkin like you see my family's miss strength? Before even letting Wang Lin speak, the big person who was driving the horse roared and also looked at Chu Feng with deep disdain. Since Chu Feng laid next to the river and his clothes were all broken and tattered, no matter how you looked at him, he seemed like a bumpkin that came out from a village. So from the bottom of his heart, he looked down at Chu Feng and felt that he knew nothing. Cough, cough. Feeling that the atmosphere was not right, Wang Lin lightly coughed 2 times, then asked Chu Feng, what business do you have in the? Facing Wang Lin's question, Chu Feng calmly smiled and replied arbitrarily, the same reason as you. What did you say? When Chu Feng said those words, the 3 other people on the carriage were greatly stunned. What did you say? Say it one more time. Wang Lin, the big person, and also the old man who was driving the carriage closely stared at Chu Feng. They had doubt written all over their faces, and they even suspected that they heard wrong. They did not even dare to trust Chu Feng's words. I said I have the same goal as Wang Lin, and I am going to join the servant exam. Chu Feng emphasized each and every word. You're saying that you're a martial cultivator as well. The old man narrowed his eyes and he was filled with doubt. Why, do I not look like one? Chu Feng smiled. Young man, as a person, be honest. It's not right to speak lies. The big person did not believe Chu Feng's words. Although they already passed down martial cultivation methods to common people, that did not mean everyone could grasp it. It had to be known that money was required to buy martial cultivation methods. So, many poor people had no chance to cultivate. In their eyes, Chu Feng was a person like that. Suit yourselves. Chu Feng shrugged and did not give any extra explanations. Seeing that Chu Feng did not refute, the old man and the big person thought that he was talking big, and they couldn't help but deepen their disdain towards Chu Feng. On the other hand, Wang Lin looked at Chu Feng while half believing and half doubting, and didn't say anything. However, on the ladder of the journey, the carriage seemed to be more awkward. Other than Wang Lin, who chatted with the old man and the big person, almost no one spoke to Chu Feng again. The carriage continued on, and when the sun set at the west, they finally entered the was extremely large. Although it was called, in reality, it was a beautiful city that was created with a mountain on the side. It was built by white-colored, mysterious bricks, and the palaces were very special as well. Within the dark emerald-green mountain range, it was rather gorgeous. This is really quite nice. Chu Feng looked at the nearby, and he felt the aura of the large groups of people. After experiencing such a life and death calamity, more and more, he felt that it was wonderful to be living. Bumpkin. The big person shot Chu Feng a glance, and contempt came from the bottom of his heart. The carriage went along the wide mountain road, and they finally reached in front of the huge city gate of the. There was a plaza in front of the city gates, and at the center of the plaza, there was a temporary tent, and it was the area where they accepted servants. At that moment, the sky was slowly darkening, and there weren't many people lining up outside of the tent. The exam was going to end, so Wang Lin and the other three quickly walked towards the tent after going down the carriage. Halt! But before even letting Wang Lin and the others near, a young man blocked their path. He was not even 20 years old, and there was a white cloth at his chest. On it were the 3 words, middle-rank servant, and his cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the spirit realm. It could be said that he was weak to the utmost degree. Naturally from that, Chu Feng slightly looked down on as a martial cultivating family that had been around for generations. Those servants, who were equivalent to disciples from schools, were a bit too weak if they only had that kind of strength. Brother, my family's miss came to join the White Dragon Villa servant exam. The big person chuckled as he explained. What time is it now? The exam has already concluded, so come next month. That servant did not even look straight into their eyes, and his attitude was very stubborn. Seeing that, Wang Lin slightly frowned, but she was helpless against their status. She did not dare to be too aggressive, so she could only force out a light smile out and say, "We hurried here from a far place and it was quite difficult, so could you help out a bit?" Wang Lin had quite a nice appearance, so after that servant saw her, he couldn't help but hesitate, and his expression clearly turned for the better. Yet he still said resolutely, "I cannot." At the same time, many other servants all around the plaza appeared, and almost all of them closed their tents. Everyone was forbidden from nearing. At that instant, the 3 of them were stupefied. Although they could still come next month if they couldn't make it this month, the 3 of them did not want to travel for nothing. Here are some of my kind feelings, please accept them. As he panicked, the old man took out 10 taels of silvers out from his pocket and passed them over. Old bastard. You think I need your 10 taels of silvers? Get out of here, or else I'll catch all of you. The actions of the old man actually angered the servant as he started pointing and cursing. Sorry. That terrified the old man. They quickly apologized and turned around at the same time, not daring to nag anymore. However, as the 3 of them gave up, Chu Feng swaggeringly walked over, brushed by their shoulders, and walked straight towards the tent. Stop. Did you not hear what I just said? Shoo. The servant already had flames of fury burning, and when he saw a person who dared to go up, he instantly bellowed. What did you say? I couldn't hear it clear enough. Chu Feng extended his ear forward and acted as if he did not understand. I said show. Asterisk bam asterisk before the servant even finished speaking, Chu Feng's clear slap landed on his face. At the same time, Chu Feng raised his foot and kicked. He directly kicked the servant until his face pointed up into the sky, and he ferociously fell to the ground. That scene happened way too fast, but there were still quite a few people that saw it. The servants of the White Tiger Villa all surrounded over, and they seemed to want to attack Chu Feng. Wang Lin was dumbstruck. She never would have thought that Chu Feng would directly attack. It was unimaginable. Miss, let's quickly leave. The old man and the big person grabbed onto Wang Lin at the same time and pulled her away. They both felt that Chu Feng was dead. Commoners who attacked people from the White Tiger Villa were simply looking to die. So, they tried their best to distance themselves from Chu Feng, to erase all relationships with Chu Feng, block them there together. But just at that time, the servant who got hit pointed and yelled at Wang Lin and the others. The other servants speedily obstructed their path. They surrounded Wang Lin and the others along with Chu Feng. "You bumpkin, we've been dragged down by you." At that instant, the old man and the big person were extremely frightened. Both of their bodies were trembling, and they couldn't help but blame Chu Feng. Although Wang Lin was a bit stronger than the other two, she was clearly scared as well. Only Chu Feng remained calm, and both of his hands were looped in front of his chest. There was even a trace of disdain in his gaze. "Damn it, you dare to hit me. Beat him to death." The servant that was beaten got himself up and rushed towards Chu Feng. The other servants also surged forward. "Stop!" But before they even attacked, an angry shout suddenly resounded. After hearing that voice, the faces of the servants changed greatly. Not only did they stop their movements, they even went to the side and formed a path. Looking over, an old man was walking towards them. The old man wore cloth clothing, and it was very simple and plain. However, there was fierceness between his eyebrows, in addition to the respectful attitude that the servants were treating him with. Everyone subconsciously felt that the old man came from an unordinary place. Chu Feng could feel that the old man was a cultivator at the 5th level of the origin realm. Although those at the 5th level of the origin realm were not much in Chu Feng's eyes, the old man's cultivation was a lot stronger when compared to the servants from the White Tiger Villa. "What is happening?" the old man asked. "This boy dared to attack us." The servants said the same things as they pointed at Chu Feng. "Oh?" The old man looked at the servant who was attacked, then assessed Chu Feng. Not only was he not angry, shock even emerged into his eyes. The reason was very simple. The servant had the cultivation of the 3rd level of the spirit realm, and those who were able to beat him certainly had strength that surpassed him. Chu Feng was so young yet had that kind of strength so naturally. He would be viewed in another light. "You are here to join the servant exam." The old man looked at Chu Feng, and his tone was very gentle. Yes, Chu Feng's attitude was very polite as well. "Enter." The old man spun around and walked towards the tent. That change endlessly stunned the crowd. Not to mention the surrounding people, even the servants didn't know what to do. A commoner attacked a person from the White Tiger Villa. Not only did he not get punished, he even got accepted to the servant exam. That did not make sense. Manager Zhang this. "What this? The sky isn't dark, so the exam for servants will continue. Don't think I don't know what all of you are doing. If you dare to break the rules without permission next time, don't blame me if I don't restrain myself." The servant who was beaten felt bitter, so he wanted to give his point of view, but what he got instead was the strict reprimand of Manager Zhang. After being rebuked, the expressions of the servants were very ugly, and no one dared to speak anymore. The surrounding people could also hear that exam was not finished, but it was just that the servants wanted to return early to the residences, so they blocked the people who wanted to participate in the exam. At that instant, not only Chu Feng, everyone who wanted to join the exam went over. Looking at the people who ceaselessly entered the tent, Wang Lin stood where she was. She silently lowered her head. She wanted to go, yet she had no courage. Their current chance was fought for by Chu Feng. However, when Chu Feng was in danger, not only did she not help him, she cowered back. That made her feel guilty towards Chu Feng, and she had no face to go over. "Oi, what are you waiting for? Why aren't you coming?" But just at that time, a familiar sound suddenly rang out. Raising her head to look, Chu Feng was standing in front of the tent while chuckling and looking at Wang Lin. At that instant, Wang Lin felt very touched in her heart. She did not expect that he would treat her so friendly, even after her previous treatment towards Chu Feng. After a split moment of hesitation, Wang Lin still walked over because she did not want to miss that chance. After arriving next to Chu Feng, the two of them looked at each other, smiled, then walked into the tent together. The sun set in the west. When the torches were lit in the plaza, the sky already darkened. The exam truly ended. The young males and females who passed it were all brought into the White Tiger Villa by the servants one by one. And with that, they became members of the White Tiger Villa. However, Wang Lin and Chu Feng did not come out from the tent. That made the big person and the old man ineffably uneasy. After the scene before, they knew that Chu Feng was a martial cultivator. Then, they thought about their mocking towards Chu Feng before. At the same time that they felt ashamed, they worried that Chu Feng would harm Wang Lin. After all, anyone could tell that Manager Zhang had favorable impressions towards Chu Feng, or else, even if the servant broken the rules at first, he would not permit commoners to attack people from the White Tiger Villa. Uncle Zhao, Uncle Liu. However, when Wang Lin appeared within their line of sight, their worries faded away like the clouds. "Miss, you passed." The big person looked at the lower-rank servant symbol on Wang Lin's chest, and he was incomparably excited. After all, being able to enter the White Tiger Villa meant that the road of cultivation would be even more smooth. "Rubbish. Our miss is the real stuff, and there is no reason she would not pass." The old man also chuckled, and he felt happiness for Wang Lin from the bottom of his heart. Although Wang Lin's family situation was not bad, it was still incomparable to the White Tiger Villa. Even if she was a servant of the White Tiger Villa, she had status and position in the White Tiger mountain range. So, any martial cultivators would want to enter the White Tiger Villa. They would not feel shame as they had the identity of being a servant. Rather, they would feel pride. It was like becoming a disciple from a school. "Wang Lin, it seems that you and me will part here. I still have to thank you for transporting me here." Just at that time, Chu Feng walked over. "No need to say it like that. If it wasn't for you, how could I pass this exam today?" Wang Lin felt a bit embarrassed. "Okay, no need to be too polite to each other. Since we've already entered the White Tiger Villa, perhaps we can even meet in the future." Chu Feng smiled and waved his hand before turning around and leaving. From nearby, Manager Zhang was waiting for Chu Feng. However, when the old man and the big person saw the servant symbol on Chu Feng's chest, they stood there blankly, and astonishment was all over their faces. After a good while, they came to their senses and said, inconceivably, "He directly got promoted to upper-rank servant. That requires at least the cultivation of the 4th level of the spirit realm, right?" Heh. Seeing that, Wang Lin bitterly smiled and said, "Yeah." The high-rank Black Rock was shattered by one of his punches. Even that Manager Zhang endlessly sighed in praise. "I think that he would have quite the development in the White Tiger Villa, right? This time, we've really looked down on people with dog eyes." After hearing Wang Lin's words, the old man and the big person felt even more ashamed. To think of all the humiliating they did to Chu Feng. They really had the heart to die at that moment. In that continent, strength ruled all. With Chu Feng's talent, after entering the White Tiger Villa, he would certainly skyrocket up. Gaining fame and status was only the matter of time. Thus, their actions really was equivalent to offending a future, well-known person in the White Tiger mountain range. Not only did they feel shame, they also felt fear in their hearts. Fear that Chu Feng would take revenge on them in the future. "Don't worry, he isn't a person who is narrow-minded." As if seeing their worries, Wang Lin comforted them. "Ah, it seems that people really cannot be judged by appearances." But even so, the old man and the big person had no way of calming down. Their intestines greened from regret, and if they knew that Chu Feng was a genius like that, How would they have dared to taunt him before? They would even rush to gain good impressions for him. However, if they knew that being at the 4th level of the spirit realm was only Chu Feng hiding his strength, and his real strength was at the 1st level of the origin realm, who knew what expression they would have? After parting, Wang Lin and Chu Feng were both sent into the White Tiger Villa, but since their positions were different, their location of residence were different as well. In the White Tiger Villa, within the group of buildings that were as boundless as the ocean, there was a fine little house. That was the living location of upper-rank servants, the resting place for Chu Feng today. I never would have thought it would be this successful. Chu Feng sat cross-legged on the bed. He shot a glance at the upper-rank servant symbol over his chest, looked at the book in his hand, and he couldn't help but lightly smile. It was a rank 2 martial skill, and it was given to him by manager Zhang. However, not every servant could receive that treatment. Although the servants of the White Tiger Villa could indeed cultivate martial skills, it was restricted to upper-rank servants. It was the rare within rare to be able to get a martial skill for cultivation, like how Chu Feng did when he just entered the White Tiger Villa. However, to Chu Feng, there was no need to cultivate the rank 2 martial skill, and also because the current him was extremely exhausted, he threw the martial skill at the head of the bed, then laid down and slept. From then on, Chu Feng concealed himself for a full 10 days in the White Tiger Villa. Although he had the status of a servant, since he was an upper-rank servant, Chu Feng did not need to do servant-like things. Mostly, he instructed the work for middle-rank and lower-rank servants. As for Chu Feng, most of the time, he inquired about the secrets of the White Tiger Villa. From the 10 days that he had been there, Chu Feng had some results, and he had a certain amount of understanding about the White Tiger Villa. The White Tiger Villa had the history of 500 years, and in terms of foundation, they were no worse than some schools. Their strength was not simple as well, and there were many experts in the villa. However, because they were rather remote, very few people within the Azure province noticed that place. However, the creator of the White Tiger Villa really was quite a person. In the White Tiger mountain range 500 years ago, there was no such thing as the White Tiger Villa. At that time, there were even more poor common people in the mountain range because of the terrain. It was very hard for them to walk out of the mountain, and most of them spent their last years there. At that time, within the White Tiger mountain range, there were actually a few martial cultivating families that had been around for generations. It was just that the families did not pass down the methods to outsiders, and commoners had no way of even touching martial cultivation. The creator of the White Tiger Villa was born as a commoner. At that time, he was still a young man, and since he could not bear being useless in his entire life, he sneaked into a martial cultivating family as a servant. He even got together with a young lady from that family. From her, he got the martial cultivating methods, and he even learnt mysterious techniques and martial skills. However, when that was unveiled, was chased by that family. At the end, he was forced to escape to an area that was viewed as a danger zone. At that moment, everyone thought that was dead. However, 5 years later, he walked out of that dead zone and became a martial cultivating expert of his generation. He was invincible within the White Tiger mountain range. When came out from there and discovered that the lady who taught him the martial cultivating methods was killed by that family, from his fury, he slaughtered them. He then returned and created the White Tiger Villa. After the White Tiger Villa was established, it quickly became the overlord of the White Tiger mountain range. Many experts outside of the White Tiger mountain range heard about it, came, and joined the White Tiger Villa. Even spread the martial cultivating methods down to commoners, so that everyone in the White Tiger mountain range could touch upon the road of martial cultivation and change their destinies. According to legends, the Murong Zai Ouyao that year could absolutely be called as a first-class character. He grasped an extremely strong martial skill, and his attacking methods were matchless in the world. Almost no one could block him off. Even a famous world spiritist in the Azure province who had extremely strong defense methods fought him, yet he was still killed in one strike. At that moment, Some people felt that Xianxia would be the same as the Azure Dragon founder and become the heaven's pride of the generation. However, no one expected that he would suddenly disappear just as his power emerged. On the year that he disappeared was the year in which he got out of the dead zone. It was the year that he established the White Tiger Villa, and in that year, he was only 20 years old. Some people said that, since he gained great benefits in the dead zone, he paid the equivalent price and was fated to not live for long. There were also others that said he was tired with worldly disputes, and he could not get rid of the guilt in his heart towards the myths that gave him the martial cultivating methods. So he lived in the forests in isolation. But no matter how Xianxia disappeared, after he disappeared, many powerful people from the Azure province rushed into the White Tiger mountain range, and they wanted to get Xianxia's transcendent martial skill. But at the end, they could not find the dead zone. Later on, someone suggested to completely flatten the White Tiger Villa, and even if they needed to dig 3 feet down, they had to find it. However, just as the top experts within the Azure province prepared to level the White Tiger Villa, Xianxia suddenly appeared. It was said that Xianxia at that time only disappeared for 2 months. Yet when people saw him again, huge changes happened to him as he became an old man. His black hair turned into snow-white, long hair. His face was as though it was paper. He wore white clothing, and he was like a dead person who was alive. He used but one attack to completely annihilate the peak experts of the Azure province at that time. It could be said that he shocked the world with one attack. With a thought, blood formed rivers, and he had power that seemed peerless and invincible. After killing those who intruded, Xianxia disappeared once again. He disappeared very thoroughly, and no one knew where he went. Even people from the White Tiger Villa did not know. However, the strangest thing was from that day forth, corpses of exceptional experts would unfathomably appear in the White Tiger Villa. They were all murdered, and they died with one attack. The efficient killing method belonged to the skill that only Xianxia had. After that, people knew that Xianxia did not die. It was just that he got fed up with worldly clashes, but he still hiddenly guarded the White Tiger Villa and did not allow anyone to intrude. Despite of that, the martial skill that Xianxia grasped that year was too attracting. For that martial skill, there were still many experts who ignored the dangers to their lives and hiddenly sneaked into the White Tiger Villa. However, at the end, they could not escape their fate of being killed. The oddest thing was that several hundred years after the disappearance of Xianxia, the same thing still often happened. The most recent one happened 200 years ago, and the way of death was the same as the people back in those years. To know that even if Xianxia still lived 200 years ago, he would be over 300 years old, and it was not an age that humans could continue surviving for. So, some people felt that Xianxia had already died from the start. The thing that was living was nothing more than a hint of his consciousness, because with a certain, absolute power, Xiaoyao's consciousness could forever not be extinguished, and he could guard the White Tiger Villa forever. From then on, no one dared to come to the White Tiger Villa to snoop, and the White Tiger Villa didn't really take part in external dealings so gradually. They faded away from people's eyes. But even so, that hooked on a Chu Feng's interest even more. He knew that the dead zone that year was most likely the entrance to the Emperor tomb located in the White Tiger mountain range. Xiaoyao must have been the same as the Azure Dragon founder and gained something within it. As for where the entrance was, or whether Xiaoyao was alive or dead, Chu Feng had no clue. However, since he already sneaked in, Chu Feng would certainly not give up, and he vowed to find some results. Early morning, when the sky had not been lit up yet, the door to Chu Feng's room was knocked. Opening it to take a look, it was Manager Zhang. "Your complexion is quite nice." After seeing Chu Feng, Manager Zhang nodded with satisfaction. He gave the clothing in his hands to Chu Feng and said, "Tidy up a bit. I have an errand for you." Chu Feng changed his clothing, then followed Manager Zhang to a garden. Within the garden were several carriages. Several of them were filled with goods, while there was one beautiful carriage for passengers. It was extremely luxurious, and even the horses that pulled the carriage were good horses. Chu Feng was not surprised. Although he interacted with lower-class people these days, he understood the foundation of the White Tiger Villa. At least it was no worse than the Vermilion Bird City or the Azure Dragon School. There were many experts hidden there, and its economic power was very strong as well. There were dozens of servants standing next to the carriages. On their hands, if they were not holding pastries, they were holding flowers. The most important thing was that all of the servants were upper-rank servants. However, all the servants were older than Chu Feng. When they saw the upper-rank servant symbol over Chu Feng's chest, they showed strange expressions. After all, to be able to become an upper-rank servant at such a young age attracted their envy. Chu Feng, today is the date in which the big miss offers sacrifices to her mother. All of you be more sharp. After saying those words, Manager Zhang left. Oi, you're new, right? Just as he left, a group of servants surrounded him. They were males and females within the group, but they already passed their youthful times. They surrounded Chu Feng, and they had evil smiles on their mouths and also unkind gazes. Chu Feng felt very disgusted when facing those gazes, but he also knew that the new servants would be bullied by the old ones. It was an unwritten rule of the White Tiger Villa. In order to successfully trick people, and for future conveniences in searching around this villa, Chu Feng endured his anger and forced a light smile out. Older brothers and older sisters, is there a problem? Who are you calling as older sisters? Do I look that damn old? Just as he finished speaking, a woman who was at least 20 years old sent a slap towards Chu Feng. That slap had quite sufficient power, and its speed was rather fast as well. But within Chu Feng's eyes, it was abnormally slow. He leaned slightly to the side and easily dodged it. Oh, you dare to dodge? Don't you know the rules here? Today, I must teach you a good lesson. Seeing that, the female servant felt surprised but fiercely raised her palm again. At the same time, everyone surrounding him prepared to attack. Chu Feng could feel the attack of strong wind from all directions. Those servants didn't know what shame was, as they surrounded and attacked a young man like Chu Feng. At that instant, Chu Feng clenched both of his fists. He was hesitating whether to counterattack or not. If he exposed his current cultivation, most likely, the White Tiger Villa would suspect that he was a spy, and things would not go well for him. Stop! Just that time, a fierce yell rang out. However, that voice was unusually sweet, and after listening to it, Chu Feng's heart tightened. Looking towards the source of the voice, Chu Feng's eyes were instantly fixed because from nearby, there was a tall and beautiful girl. The girl had snow-like skin, white with smoothness, and although her appearance could not be matched with the beauties of the country, she still had a unique demeanor. The most important thing was that her figure was extremely good. Her front stuck out and her rear rose, and they were well developed, smooth, and round. In addition to her pair of pencil-like straight long legs, she had a devil-like body that was comparable to Su Ro. Chu Feng genuinely could not look away from such a nice figure, because he couldn't help but think of the euphoric night with Su Ro. Seeing Chu Feng staring at her so plainly, the girl slightly frowned, and a hint of disgust clearly emerged into her gaze. Ho, not even willing to now. Isn't such a good body for others to look. Chu Feng coldly laughed in his heart, and his gaze still swept back and forth on her long, beautiful legs. He completely disregarded what expression she had. We pay our respects to Big Miss. However, as Chu Feng looked with great interest and was extremely absorbed, respectful voices rang out from around him. At the same time, the dozens of upper-rank servants bent their bodies and paid their respects. Big Miss? Really? She's the Big Miss of the White Tiger Villa, Murong Xinyu. Chu Feng suddenly realized it. Murong Xinyu was the eldest daughter of the master of the White Tiger Villa. From when she was born, she was unable to cultivate. However, she was an extremely smart person. I'm finished. Chu Feng hiddenly cursed because he discovered that the color of Murong Xinya's current face was ashen, Clearly, she was angered by him. At that instant, Chu Feng felt a bit of regret because he knew that he made a huge mistake. The servants around Chu Feng rejoiced in his misfortune. What Murong Xinian hated the most was others looking at her beauty. Chu Feng touched upon a huge taboo, so they looked forward to what punishment Chu Feng was going to receive. "Uncle Zhang, let's go." The thing that bewildered others was that no punishment was given to Chu Feng by Murong Xinian, and she only went straight onto the carriage. Seeing that, Manager Zhang breathed a sigh of relief. Meaningful looked at Chu Feng, then followed her. "You've offended the big miss. You're dead. Hold a bit more of this. If I'm happy, perhaps I can plead a bit for you." The servants forcefully stuffed the sacrificial items to Chu Feng, and only when Chu Feng could not carry anymore, they chased after the moving carriages. As for Chu Feng, he paid no attention to them either because his heart was completely submerged into uneasiness. He was also worried how the big miss would take care of him. It was not good for him, who was preparing to search for the entrance to the Emperor tomb in the White Tiger Villa. After the carriages left the White Tiger Villa, they went deep into the White Tiger mountain range. Only when it went 1,000 miles out did it stop at a forest. There was a mountain grave there. Without any thinking, Chu Feng knew that it was the grave of Murong Xinian's mother. At that instant, the servants started to set up the offerings. However, the main labor was done by Chu Feng. They were clearly bullying Chu Feng, and both Murong Xinian and Manager Zhang saw that, but they did not stop them. Chu Feng could only endure the humiliation and swallow his complaints, who told him to offend Murong Xinian right. The more he did that, the more excessive they got. They felt that they were venting Murong Xinian's anger for her, so even if they were bullying, it was right and just. At the end, all of the work was given to Chu Feng. It was because it was noon and Murong Xinian needed to eat, so the servants just went and served her. Only Chu Feng by himself served the big Miss Dead Mother. They really are natural slaves. Seeing the servants who had smiles all over their faces and were surrounding Murong Xinian, contempt rose from the bottom of Chu Feng's heart. This Murong Xinian isn't anyone good either. If you're going to offer sacrifices to your mother, you should kowtow in front of your mother's grave. Yet she didn't. What kind of offering is this? This aura. But just at that time, Chu Feng slightly frowned and swept his fierce gaze towards his surroundings. He was able to feel that there were a dozen or so cultivators nearing. Every single one was at the origin realm. The weakest was at the first level of the origin realm, whereas the strongest reached the 5th level of the origin realm. Russell asterisk before discovering the situation for long, stepping sounds came from the surrounding forest. Very soon, over 10 figures came out from the forest. Those people wore black, and they only revealed their vicious eyes. They held blades that glittered with cold light, and their killing intent was completely revealed. "Who are you?" Seeing that the situation was wrong, Manager Zhang fiercely yelled and ran in front of Murong Xinian, putting her behind him to protect her. Whoosh whoosh asterisk when those black-clothed people saw Murong Xinian, they said nothing, waved their weapons within their hands, surrounded Murong Xinian and attacked. Their target was very obvious. "They are assassins. Protect the big miss." Manager Zhang explosively yelled again. Both of his arms moved and afterimages were created. He surrounded Murong Xinian by himself. It was as if he became a copper and iron wall. The group of assassins that carried weapons could not penetrate through, but the so-called two fists cannot fight four hands, and besides, there were so many people surrounding and attacking him. There was even a person who was no weaker than Manager Zhang, so he would quickly be unable to continue. Asterisk clang 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 asterisk suddenly. Manager Zhang sent out several palms at the same time and forcibly broken a person's weapon. After that, he fiercely landed an attack on that assassin's chest, and just like that, he died by a hit. However, at the same time on his body, he was also had 2 blade wounds and blood flowed. Big miss, quickly run. Enduring the huge pain on his body, Manager Zhang grabbed Murong Xinian and threw her out of the encirclement. Murong Xinian, who had absolutely no cultivation, ferociously fell on the ground. Protect the big miss. Seeing that, two servants righteously went up to support Murong Xinyu, but when two cold flashes streaked across, without any cry of pain, the two servants fell within a pool of blood. It turned out that two black-clothed people at the second level of the origin realm were already pouncing towards Murong Xinyu. That scene terrified the remaining servants. Not only did they not block anymore, they even started to flee and left Murong Xinyu alone. But that was quite understandable. When it was related to their lives, most people would do the same thing as well. You bunch of bastards. Looking at the servants that abandoned her and ran for their lives, Murong Xinyu grinded her teeth in anger. After a furious curse, she spun around and wanted to escape. However, her speed was far from being equal to those servants. With some carelessness, she tripped and fell again. At the same time, the two black-clothed people already neared. They waved the sharp blades in their hands and stabbed towards Murong Xinyu. Before death, fear finally appeared on Murong Xinyu's face. She couldn't help but close her eyes and didn't dare to continue looking. She felt that she was, without a doubt, dead. Poof, however, when a heavy sound rang out and warm blood sprayed onto her face, she astonishedly discovered that she did not feel any pain coming from her body. While feeling all sorts of confusion, Murong Xinyu gradually opened her eyes. But when she clearly saw the scene in front of her eyes, she was dumbfounded. In front of Murong Xinyu, Chu Feng was standing there. Under Chu Feng's feet, two black-clothed people who were at the second level of the origin realm laid within a pool of blood. Chu Feng attacked. He did not have any goals, nor did he think about it too much. He just did that because he didn't want a girl, who did not even have the strength to tie up a chicken, to be killed by origin realm experts in front of his face. While looking at that scene, Murong Xinyu had astonishment all over her face because she didn't see what just happened. But she knew that the two people who wanted to kill her were abruptly dead. If it was a normal situation, that scene would not be difficult to comprehend. Clearly, the person in front of her killed the two black-clothed people. However, when the person who was standing in front of her was a servant and a young man like Chu Feng, obviously, Murong Xinyu had no way of accepting that fact. "Little child, you are looking to die." Just at that time, two more black-clothed people rushed over. They were at the third level of the origin realm, and when they saw their comrades being killed, they were incomparably furious. They revolved their origin power and sent out two strong martial skills. The two martial skills were not to be underestimated. Their strong might shook the ground into trembling. Wisps of flames were tracing in the air as they emitted ear-piercing roaring sounds. Facing such a frightening attack, Murong Xinyu screeched in fear because to her, who did not even have spiritual energy, that strong origin power was too terrifying. But as Murong Xinyu felt that she was definitely going to die, Chu Feng coldly snorted, and without even moving, the two strong attacks exploded 3 meters away from Chu Feng. That might was extremely terrifying. Energy ripples became hurricanes of formed origin power as they engulfed outwards. They snapped all the surround big trees into ashes. One escaping servant was even shattered forcibly by the energy. However, such a strong explosion was stopped 3 meters away from Chu Feng. It was as though there was an invisible wall, and it did not even harm half of Chu Feng's hair. How did that happen? Murong Xinyu, who personally saw everything, had her eyes wide open from shock. Her small mouth slightly opened, and astonishment was all over her face. She did not know what happened, and obviously she did not know that it was the spirit formation from the legends. In reality, even the two black-clothed people who attacked couldn't help but hesitate for a bit. Originally, they thought that they could kill Chu Feng with the attack, but they never would have thought that he would not be injured in any way. As they were at a loss, suddenly, lighting appeared on Chu Feng's body and snakes of lightning surged as they roared towards the sky. In an instant they pounced towards the two black-clothed people, forcibly swallowed them, and the people became ashes. This time, everyone saw everything clear. They saw that Chu Feng did not even move, but used overwhelming martial skills to kill the two black-clothed people who were at the third level of the origin realm. This aura, it's the first level of the origin realm. However, how can someone who is at the first level of the origin realm be so strong? Killing those at the third level of the origin realm is like squishing ants. Although Manager Zhang was still bitterly fighting with the black-clothed people, he still noticed what Chu Feng did. With his old and hard-to-deal-with experience, he was aware that Chu Feng was a bit off. He pointed at Chu Feng and yelled out loudly, "Who are you? Why did you sneak into my White Tiger Villa?" What? Sneak into the White Tiger Villa? Everyone reacted to Manager Zhang's words. Normally, servants could not possibly have cultivation like Chu Feng's. And with his cultivation, although he would not be at the peak even in the White Tiger Villa, he would still certainly be considered as an expert. It would be impossible for him to be such a petty servant. At that instant, fear emerged onto Murong Xinia's shocked face. She started to climb backwards frightenedly. Because of the White Tiger Villa's secret, there were indeed many cultivating experts that sneaked in, and those people had malicious intents. She was kidnapped once before, and she almost lost her life. If you want to live, don't run around. Chu Feng turned his head and said indifferently, "Eh?" As she saw Chu Feng's fierce gaze, for some reason, Murong Xinyu couldn't help but be at a loss. After that, she stopped her body's movements and blankly sat where she was. Asterisk swish, swish, swish asterisk just at that moment, whooshing noises were emanated from the surrounding forest. There were a good 100 black-clothed people that came out from the forest. All of them held blades, and all of their auras belonged in the origin realm. Kill everyone with no mercy. A cold voice rang out, and the black-clothed people started their massacre. Almost all the servants who did not run away were killed. In actuality, even the servants who did run away died as they were killed within the forest. Clearly, the group of people had already planned to not leave any survivors from the start. Under the surrounding group attack, even Manager Zhang had no way of continuing, and he quickly fell down. However, on Chu Feng's side, no one would even get near him. Those who came within the range of 10 meters would die. "Friend, I see that you aren't a person from my White Tiger Villa. Can you not get involved in my White Tiger Villa's private matters?" A black-clothed person at the 5th level of the origin realm spoke, and it was evident that he was aware that Chu Feng was not simple. "Who are you? Why do you need to harm me?" After knowing that the black-clothed people were people from the White Tiger Villa, Murong Xinyu was enraged because she could not think who would dare to kill her even after knowing her position and identity in the White Tiger Villa. "As long as you help out a bit, my White Tiger Villa will heavily reward you." The black-clothed person completely ignored Murong Xinyu and politely clasped his hands towards Chu Feng. At the same time, dozens of black-clothed people already carefully encircled them. If there were any unsuited words, they would attack with their full strength. Facing that situation, Murong Xinyu had no choice but to stand up and closely follow behind Chu Feng. Thinking about it, even she felt that it was amusing. The grand big miss of the White Tiger Villa needed the protection of an outsider. She even offended that outsider and he received quite a bit of grievance. Yet currently, that outsider was the only person that could protect her, a person that she had to rely on. "My friend, do you think you will be victorious?" Since Chu Feng did not speak, the black-clothed person's voice finally became icy cold. "If you want to attack, go ahead. This girl is under my protection." Chu Feng faintly smiled and didn't even put those people in his eyes. "Attack!" Seeing that, the black-clothed person did not waste any more words. With a cold shout, over 100 black-clothed people moved and started their attack on Chu Feng. There were different strong and surly martial skills, but the same thing that they all had was strength. Just with that pressure, it was enough for those at the spirit realm to die. However, Murong Xinyu, who was currently under Chu Feng's protection, was astounded as she discovered that she was not threatened in any way. An invisible wall was formed in front of them. It was like a transparent fort that protected both Chu Feng and Murong Xinyu. Despite the martial skills that endlessly bombarded over and continuously exploded, they were stopped by the fort, and there was no way to penetrate it in any way. Is this a spirit formation technique? Murong Xinyu was stunned. Although she could not cultivate after all, she was the big miss of the White Tiger Villa, so she had heard about a lot of things. Naturally, she would have heard of world spiritists, so she also knew that the spirit formation techniques were the strongest defense methods in the world. However, no matter what, she never would have thought that a young man who was so much younger than her was a world spiritist and even had such strong cultivation. There was no one who had that kind of strength at that age in her White Tiger Villa. With that, Murong Xinyu couldn't help but look at Chu Feng in another light and thought, could it be that outside of the White Tiger Villa, there are countless experts and geniuses form crowds? Damn it, what strange method did this boy use? How are my attacks not landing on him? Facing that situation, the black-clothed people felt very helpless. Impossible. Is he a world spiritist? A world spiritist at such a young age? Where did he come from? Even the leader of the black-clothed people tightly frowned and felt that Chu Feng was too hard to deal with. What? You're done. If you're done, it's my turn. Chu Feng waved his big sleeve and the spirit formation quickly contracted. From a spirit formation fort that was as large as a house, it became an extremely small space that could only fit Chu Feng and Murong Xian. At that time, Chu Feng raised his feet and took a step forward. He stepped out from the spirit formation. His left hand formed into a fist and a golden longbow appeared. His pulled with his right hand, and a golden arrow condensed and appeared. From then on, Chu Feng explosively and repeatedly shot out. Howling wind noises never-endingly sounded out. Rain of golden arrows filled the sky as they all flew over. Every single arrow saw blood, and none of them missed. Under the burst of shooting, very quickly, over half of the 100 black-clothed people died or were injured. Almost no one could dodge Chu Feng's arrow because it was as though the arrows had magic. They wanted to dodge, yet they could not. They wanted to defend, yet they could not. Retreat. Seeing one body after the other being pierced and laying within a pool of blood all around him, even the leader panicked. He yelled and took the lead to escape. HMPH, you think you can get away? Chu Feng coldly snorted. He aimed at the black-clothed leader and shot. Wherever the flash of a golden light went, nothing could stop it. Several enormous trees that could touch the sky had holes bored through them. At the end, only when it landed and forcibly exploded the head of the leader did it dissipate. That was the highest profound meaning of the bow of 100 transformations. There were no wasted arrows, and every single one took a life. Unless their strength was above Chu Feng's, no one could escape from the slaughter of the bow of 100 transformations. With a blink, no one remained alive within the 100 black-clothed people. All of them died by Chu Feng's bow. If they were not punctured through the chest, they exploded. All of them died by one arrow, and they died quite efficiently. This, looking at the bloody scene in front of her, Murong Xinyu tightly frowned. It was not the first time that she saw such a wretched scene. But when that bloody scene was created by a young man who was a few years younger than her, indescribable shock was in her heart. Not only was it an issue of cultivation, it was also an issue of the mind. If he was an adult, it would be reasonable, but it was simply too rare for a young man to slaughter so decisively, without any mercy. If Chu Feng wasn't protecting her, she really would have suspected whether Chu Feng was a cold-blooded monster or not. Manager Zhang, what words do you want to say? Chu Feng saw that Manager Zhang still hadn't died yet and seemed to have words that he wanted to say. So he walked over. After all, without that old man, Chu Feng could not sneak into the White Tiger Villa so successfully. I don't care what goal you have, but I wish that you don't harm my miss. Right now, if there are people in the White Tiger Villa that dares to assassinate the miss so openly and boldly, that means change must have happened in the villa. I hope that you can protect her. As long as nothing harms her, my villa's master will certainly repay you. Manager Zhang begged with an extremely weak voice. It could be seen that he really worried about Murong Xinyu. Manager Zhang, At that instant, Murong Xinyu also ran over. When she saw he was dying, painful tears flowed down, and it was clear that their relationship was quite good. Chu Feng stood on the side and silently looked at the two people. When Manager Zhang closed his eyes, he patted Murong Xinya's shoulder and said, "He's gone. Manager Zhang is gone." Murong Xinyu was also not a stubborn person, so she stood up, wiped the tears on her face away, looked at Chu Feng, then said, "So, who are you?" "It doesn't matter who I am. You only need to know that I am a person who can protect you right now." Chu Feng replied tranquilly, "Protect me. You are a spy who sneaked into my White Tiger villa with malicious intents. How would know if you protecting me is due to other goals?" "I have malicious intents. You are a person who does not have any cultivation. What malicious intents would I have towards you? I just saw that you were pitiful, so I helped you out. If I want to kill you, I don't even need to move a single finger. I do indeed have goals in the White Tiger Villa, but that is certainly not you. It is fine if you believe me or not. You have no other choice. If you don't follow me, you have no way of surviving and returning to the White Tiger Villa." Chu Feng was too lazy to explain. He strided towards the nearby carriage, cut off the ropes, and directly went onto a treasured horse. It was exactly how Manager Zhang said it was. If the people from the White Tiger Villa dared to assassinate Murong Xinyu, most likely, some change must have happened. What Chu Feng hoped for the most were internal changes. With that, the White Tiger Villa would be in a chaotic state. It would be more convenient for Chu Feng to dive into deeper areas, use his spirit power, and investigate the secrets of the White Tiger Villa. As for Murong Xinyu, Chu Feng really did only help her from a spur of kindness. That girl had no usefulness. Also, Chu Feng was not afraid of telling her his secret by saying that he was a spy who snuck into the White Tiger Villa. If certain changes really happened to the White Tiger Villa, Murong Xinyu would have no way of even returning to the White Tiger Villa, so how would she tell his secret to others? Thinking to that point, Chu Feng did not hesitate as he fiercely kicked the horse under him and prepared to return to the White Tiger Villa. At that time, a panicked voice also rang out behind. "Don't leave me behind." Turning his head and looking back, he saw Murong Xinyu running towards Chu Feng, and she had expressions of fear and anxiousness. It could be seen that she was truly scared that Chu Feng would abandon and not care about her. "What, you're not afraid that I have ill intents towards you now?" Chu Feng unpleasantly smiled and said, "Regardless of what goal you have, it is a fact that you just saved me. As long as you protect me all the way back to the White Tiger Villa, I will certainly not treat you unfairly." Murong Xinyu said quietly. It was obvious that she gave in. "Come up." Chu Feng lightly smiled and pulled Murong Xinyu to the back of the horse. Although that girl was a burden, at crucial times she could also be a life-saving badge. He could bring her, or he could leave her. Chu Feng's choice was to protect her once again. Chu Feng brought Murong Xinyu back to the White Tiger Villa. On the road, they met quite a few more assassins. Some covered their faces. Some just wore normal martial clothing that even Murong Xinyu recognized. When they saw each other, they directly attacked and wanted to take Murong Xinyu's life. Luckily, there was Chu Feng as an escort, and also because there weren't overwhelming experts, their journey back could be said to be quite smooth without obstructions. At least no one could stop Chu Feng. However, that made Murong Xinyu very uneasy and very anxious. She felt that something must have happened to the White Tiger Villa. On the other hand, Chu Feng was more and more hiddenly happy, because he hoped that internal conflicts happened in the White Tiger Villa. Only with that could he take the chance and enter. As Chu Feng and Murong Xinyu arrived at the White Tiger Villa, he discovered that a large amount of White Tiger Villa experts were killing each other outside of the villa. Shouts and slaughtering filled the inside of the White Tiger Villa, and there were unceasing rumbles. Heavens, why is this happening? Mutiny. Someone started a mutiny. Looking at the people from the villa who were like family in the past, yet were currently killing each other, Murong Xinya's face paled. Her beautiful eyes glittered, and they revealed unspeakable emotion. but it could be seen that she was very nervous and agitated. She did not know what to do. She wanted to stop it all, however, she was powerless. Everything that happened today was unimaginable and unpredictable. It seems that you are quite an ignorant girl. Looking at the current Murong Xinyu, Chu Feng smiled. What is your meaning? Murong Xinyu coldly questioned. Although she was unable to cultivate, she was naturally intelligent. So many of the affairs in the villa were passed down by her father and dealt by her. Despite of that, right now, she was mocked by a young man who was so much younger than her. That made her extremely displeased. Clearly, such a large-scale internal movement was preplanned. Your White Tiger Villa was already formlessly split into two parts. As for you, being the big miss of the White Tiger, being the daughter of the White Tiger Villa's master, you did not detect any of this before, and you are even revealing an expression of nonplusness. Are you saying that you were not ignorant? Chu Feng sneered and said, You, Murong Xinyu originally wanted to refute, but she could not find any foundation to refute on because Chu Feng was extremely correct. Although she was very smart, she did not suspect too much. She only saw the harmony on the surface of the White Tiger Villa, but she was not aware of the huge concealed dangers hidden behind the surface. She hated herself. Her father usually closed himself in isolation, so many of the things in the White Tiger Villa were done by her and her uncle. However, problems appeared within the villa, yet she knew nothing about it. She had no face to meet her father. Let me ask you a question. Up until now, do you still not know who organized this mutiny? Chu Feng asked. Murong Xinyu was at a loss. Sigh. It seems that getting used to a peaceful life really makes people slow. Chu Feng shook his head. He said to remind her, think about it. If this isn't the work of an outsider who has such powerful rallying power within your family, so powerful that so many people are willing to serve him, and also not hesitating over the crime of betrayal for the sake of a mutiny. It's him. Murong Xinyu suddenly came to a realization, yet she did not dare to believe it. Who? Chu Feng closely questioned. Murong Xinyu found it difficult to say it. Don't tell me that you still want to keep secrets from me at this time. I am the only person who can help you, Chu Feng said, looking at Chu Feng, who seemed to truly want to help herself. And after thinking about the journey back, in which she would have already been dead if Chu Feng was not there as an escort, Murong Xinyu slowly said, My uncle, Murong Yangyuan, is the only person other than my father who has such strong rallying powers. But within the time period that my father is closed in isolation, many of the things in the villa are dealt by me. However, I only deal with the internal trifles. The real, important things in the villa are dealt by my uncle. But thinking about it now, in the years that my father is closed in isolation, the real power of the White Tiger Villa was controlled by my uncle. Thinking to that point, only then did Murong Xinyu know the seriousness of the consequences. Yet she had no way of accepting that truth, because she could not imagine why her uncle would do such things to the villa. This cannot be blamed on you. At the end, you don't have much experience. If you had to blame someone, you can only blame your father for overtrusting your uncle. Seeing how everything is today, your uncle must have had thought about this thoroughly for a long time. Since he is seizing power today, the first person he wants to kill will certainly be your father. Where is your father secluded at? Chu Feng seemed concerned, but in reality he was hiddenly inquiring information. Although many people did not know about the secret of the White Tiger Villa, Chu Feng felt that it was impossible for the master of the White Tiger Villa to not know any clues. As for where he isolated himself at, the location would absolutely not be simple. Chu Feng wanted to sneak into it, and Murong Xinyu was able to help Chu Feng. Although the girl was smart, she did not plan too much, and because of that, she could be used very easily. Oh no, my uncle has the key to enter that if he. Hearing Chu Feng's words, Murong Xinya's expression changed greatly, and without speaking anymore, she ran towards another side of the White Tiger Villa. Seeing that, Chu Feng said nothing as well and closely followed. After a while, Murong Xinyu arrived and brought Chu Feng to a pile of rocks, located outside of the White Tiger Villa. It could be said to be a forest of rocks, and it was too messy. It should have been created from a left-behind mountain. Chu Feng searched out with his spirit power, but he could not feel anything different. Those rocks seemed to be normal mountain rocks, and they were not arranged with any rules. However, seeing Murong Xinyu spinning around while looking left and right, it was evident that she was looking for something, and it would certainly not be as simple as it seemed to be on the surface. Just at that time, after Murong Xinyu found a huge rock, she breathed a sigh of relief. When she took the jade rock necklace that was on her neck and pressed it into an indentation on the rock, the disarrayed rocks changed, and very quickly, a deep tunnel appeared. After the tunnel opened, Murong Xinyu hurriedly ran into it. Chu Feng also closely followed, and just as he entered, the entrance automatically closed. However, at that instant, in front of Chu Feng's eyes, it was not pitch black. At that moment, it could certainly be said to be quite a dazzling sight. There were countless murals on the walls, and they were extremely fine. Several glowing rocks hung above their heads, and the cave was lit up as though it was day. The most important thing was the old smell that pounced towards him. It told Chu Feng that it had been built for a long time, at least for several hundred years. It seems that this is the place that I want to find. A shallow smile was raised from the corner of Chu Feng's mouth. That area was too hidden. Even his spirit power could not feel any trace of difference. If Murong Xinyu did not bring him here, Chu Feng could probably not find it even if he searched for his entire life. Since Murong Xinyu didn't have any cultivation, her walking speed was simply too slow. In order for them to quickly reach deeper into the cave, Chu Feng could only carry the beautiful female on his back and run. But it had to be said that she felt quite nice. Why is this place called as the Lifeline? As Chu Feng used the Imperial Sky technique and quickly ran with flying speed, he pretended to be curious and asked. I'm not too clear as well. However, it already existed when the White Tiger Villa was first created. Murong Xinyu replied. Oh, obviously. Chu Feng could hear that Murong Xinyu was saying things half-heartedly, as the Lifeline must have some secrets that could not be said to others. Murong Xinyu was a bit cautious against him, so she was unwilling to say the full truth. But even so, Chu Feng still understood that if the Lifeline was created at the same time as the White Tiger Villa, it could be seen that there was an extremely huge secret. Chu Feng's speed was extremely fast as he rushed forward. Even Fergana horses could not match his speed. The center of the Lifeline was at the bottom of the White Tiger Villa, so after a short moment, Chu Feng arrived in the core area of the Lifeline. At that instant, the tunnel was stretched extremely wide open, and it was like an underground castle. Chu Feng and Murong Xinyu saw many corpses there, and the blood was even radiating faint heat. Clearly, those people died fairly recently. Also, the further they went forward, the more corpses there were, and the cultivation of the dead bodies became stronger and stronger. They rose from the origin realm to the peak of the origin realm. To know that that cultivation could be counted as being at the peak even in the Azure Dragon School. Continuing on, there was even a profound realm corpse. Although it was only at the first level of the profound realm, it was still a profound realm expert. Even profound realm experts were killed. Wah, profound realm, quickly, help me absorb his source energy. Eggy was still there, but she just kept her silence. However, when she saw the remains of a profound realm expert, she couldn't help but speak. Eggy, who already entered the origin realm, had no interest in the source energy of origin realm cultivators. However, she was still greatly attracted to profound realm experts. Chu Feng did not stay idle, and he went next to the remains of the profound realm expert and silently absorbed his source energy for Eggy. But compared to Chu Feng, Murong Xinyu could not stay calm. She cried with sorrow all over her face. It's Grandpa's sixth protector. I never would have thought even he got caught in this problem. What kind of person is he? After absorbing the source energy, Chu Feng asked. He is one of the 6 protectors of my White Tiger Villa, and he is the most loyal subordinate of my father. He guarded in this lifeline and protected my father's safety. I did not think that he would have been killed as well. It seems that they've really attacked the lifeline. My father may be in danger right now." Murong Xinyu got more and more worried. Asterisk rumble rumble asterisk just at that time, deep within the lifeline, a thunder-like huge boom resounded out. Although the distance was very far, that noise still clearly entered Chu Feng and Murong Xinius' ears. Even the ground under their feet shook. It could be seen what level of attack was needed in order to create such might. Asterisk rumble rumble asterisk after that, the huge sounds constantly sounded out. Chu Feng could endure it, but Murong Xinyu was already shaken by the ground as she swayed left and right, unable to stand still. But even so, she still said to Chu Feng, "Quickly bring me there. I cannot let them harm my father." "Are you an idiot?" With this kind of sound and might, it is certainly the clash of profound realm experts. If you go over there, you will only be cannon fodder. Chu Feng fiercely glared at Murong Xinyu and then paid no attention to her. He took out the World Spirit Compass and wanted to find some instructions. "That's a World Spirit Compass. You really are a World Spiritist." Looking at the World Spirit Compass in Chu Feng's hand that was radiating light and all sorts of symbols, Murong Xinyu was startled. Although she never seen a World Spiritist before, she had heard of the methods of World Spiritists. So the current her could confirm that Chu Feng was a World Spiritist. It was just that it was too impressive to be a World Spiritist at that age. Chu Feng ignored her and focused on analyzing the situation in front of him with Eggy. Finally, he got some excellent results. The lifeline could very possibly be the entrance to an emperor tomb. However, the direction of the entrance was the direction in which profound realm experts were fighting at. That put Chu Feng in a difficult situation, because the White Tiger Villa people certainly knew the secrets of the lifeline. Right now, they were exchanging blows at the entrance of the emperor tomb. So, they were most likely fighting over something. It could be treasures, or it could also be the right to enter the emperor tomb. However, with Chu Feng's current strength, even if he knew that there were treasures ahead, he could not rashly continue forward because, after being chased by Shangyu and Tian, he deeply understood the distance between him and profound realm experts. "It's fine if you don't go. If you don't go, I'll go." Just at that time, Murong Xinyu coldly snorted, and while stumbling and tripping, she ran deeper into the lifeline. "Are you looking to die?" Seeing that, Chu Feng dashed, arrived in front of Murong Xinyu and grabbed onto her. "Let go of me." Murong Xinyu tried her best to struggle. When she thought that her own father was possibly facing dangers to his life at that moment, she had no way of staying calm. "You calm down. You have absolutely no cultivation, so when you arrive there, how can you help him? Not only will you not be able to help your father, you will even distract him and cause him to be severely injured by others." Chu Feng loudly reminded. "What can I do? Do I just stare as my father is being attacked and not do anything?" Murong Xinyu cried without sound. She felt extremely helpless as she cried, and it could be seen that she was really worried about her father. Just at that time, the deafening booms finally stopped. In response, Chu Feng carried Murong Xinyu on his back again and gravely warned, "Without my permission, you are not allowed to yell for no reason. If your father gets disturbed, you are the criminal who killed him. I'll listen to you." Murong Xinyu obediently nodded because at that moment she was really helpless. On the other hand, that young man could calmly analyze the situation in front of his eyes, and he became her backbone. That forced Murong Xinyu to listen to Chu Feng's words. At that situation, Chu Feng hid his aura and slowed his footsteps. He gradually walked deeper into the lifeline. He did not dare to use his spirit power, because he did not know if there were world spiritists in front of him. If there were, he would be discovered and things would not go well. However, luckily, after walking for several miles, there were no abnormalities. Rather, an extremely clear voice entered Chu Feng's ear from nearby. "Murong Yangyuan, what are you doing? Do you want to destroy 500 years of my Murong family's foundation?" That sound was extremely clear, yet extremely heavy. That person should have been heavily injured. However, after hearing that voice, Murong Xinyu on Chu Feng's back couldn't help but twitch. Clearly that person was her father, the master of the White Tiger Villa, Murong Yunluan. When Murong Yunluan's words came out of his mouth, a smug voice also rang out as well. My younger brother, you really have mistaken me. I am not destroying the foundation of my White Tiger Villa. I am letting my White Tiger Villa return to the pinnacle.